Good evening. We're happy you're all here. We have a full house. Sorry, but we had to make that back extension into offices because we've run out of room up here at City Hall. So sorry that there are some of you standing. Just a couple of things before we get started. Realize that even if you're whispering or chattering to the person next to you, it really carries up here and can get quite noisy for us to hear. So if you could keep that to a minimum, we'd really appreciate it. Tonight, we have with us Laura Fairchild with the Baha'i, is that how you say it? Baha'i Faith with the Interfaith Council, and she is going to lead us in our invocation. Whatever you want to do.
I'm actually Judy Hawley. Laura's out of town with a family emergency. So.
Just pull that mic to you, though, so that they can hear. Thank you.
O thou kind Lord, this gathering is turning to thee. These hearts are radiant with thy love. These minds and spirits are exhilarated by the message of thy glad tidings. O God, let this American democracy become glorious in spiritual degrees, even as it has aspired to material degrees, and render this just government victorious. Confirm this revered nation to upraise the standard of the oneness of humanity, to promulgate the most great peace, to become thereby most glorious and praiseworthy among all the nations of the world. O God, this American nation is worthy of thy favors and is deserving of thy mercy. Make it precious and near to thee through thy bounty and bestowal. Abdul-Baha.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Natalie Larson is going to lead us in our pledge. Thank you. Again, I'll remind you about the whispering and the noise. We can't hear up here when people are whispering. It's really hard for us to hear. So if you'll be respectful of that. The first item on our agenda is comments from the public. And you must be a resident of the city of St. George. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. And I have a lot of forms, so I've asked Danielle to time and give you a 30-second warning when, she made a time, so that we can get through our agenda without being here all night. Please be courteous and show respect. This is the most important thing. Whether you agree or disagree with one side or the other, please no clapping or booing. That we just don't want any of that. And if you do, I'm going to ask the chief of police to escort you out. And comments cannot be related to any pending items on the agenda. So if you come to comment on our budget tonight, you do not need to fill out one of these forms, but because there will be a public hearing for that later. So with that being said, we'll get started with Greg Prince. Greg, if you'll come to the microphone, and Danielle will start the clock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm Greg Prince. I'm CEO of Soft Cell Labs in St. George. I have a 50-year career in biomedical research that began at UCLA. My first laboratory was next to the lab of...
You speak up, I think it's hard. Yeah.
My first laboratory was next to the lab of Dr. Roy Walford, who was one of the pioneers in transplantation immunology. He taught me the term xenograft, which in layperson's terms is an organ that's donated by a donor for transplantation into a recipient. The immune system is programmed to reject something that's different. And what Dr. Walford and pioneers ever since then have done is to learn how to retrain the immune system so that it will accept that graft, which is often to the benefit and occasionally life-saving to the patient. In 2008, I was introduced intimately to another form with the same prefix, and that was xenophobia, and its unfortunate child of homophobia. This was in the aftermath of Proposition 8 in California. I was enlisted in a cause that I still serve to try to heal wounds and build bridges. We see the same thing with xenophobia that we do with xenographs, that there is a human instinct to reject that which is different. The higher form of living is to learn what that difference is and to learn to accept it and to be enriched by it. In 2012, your former state senator, Jim DeBacchus, and I put on a banquet in Salt Lake City that had LGBT leaders and church leaders from the LDS Church. I arranged for Bill Evans, who was with Church Public Affairs Department, and Rick Jacobs, who was the head of the Courage Campaign in California, to be seated next to each other at dinner. Over the course of the dinner, they chatted. At the end, we had impromptu remarks, and they stood up and said, 4 years ago, we were the enemy of each other. Each of us was the face of an organization that opposed the other for Prop 8. Now we have heard each other's stories, and we are friends. That's what we need to do with LGBTQ issues, is to learn each other's stories, to sit down and dine together, and we can heal these wounds and bridge these differences. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prince. Next is Larry Myers. Larry, I'm going to make an exception to the rule, even though you're not a resident of the city.
Well, I appreciate that exception. I didn't know if you'd let me speak or not. I think you all probably know me. I was a resident of St. George years ago and lived here for a number of years, and then just moved a little bit up the road to Winchester Hills. I have my business office here. I spend probably most of my waking hours in St. George. I spend a lot of money here. I love to eat and do other activities here in this beautiful city. So thank you for your service. We appreciate the time that each of you give. We know that being in the city council position is not easy. You don't get paid a lot and you take a lot of crap. But thank you for hearing us today. My concern is about the future of this city. We want the city to reflect the values of the majority in the community, and sometimes we wonder if it does. I was hoping that maybe next month for July, the city would consider having MAGA month, M-A-G-A month, Make America Great Again month. We could have a theme, maybe something like we love the earth because of all the good things it gives us, like oil and animals and things like that that we like to eat. And we could celebrate that, and a lot of us would really enjoy the theme of making America great again, because we love our country and it's a great place. And so if the city is going to take on themes and political agendas, we'd certainly like that one to be the next one. This concern I have is a lot of people, when they run for office, they say that they're conservative and that they have conservative values, but then when they get into office and become elected officials, they spend, they tax, and they regulate. And I don't think those go with our conservative values that many in the community share. Many of us would like to see less spending, less regulation, less taxes, and more liberty, more freedom. So those are some thoughts for you to consider, and all I can say is we love MAGA. Love MAGA. Go MAGA.
Thanks, Larry. No clapping, please. No booing, no clapping, no jeering. Next, John Harmon.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members.
Will you speak up into that mic pretty loud, okay?
I'm here to speak about a city park, or a lack of a city park in our neighborhood. Back when we built our homes in Las Colinas area, just off Pioneer Road, the Ents Development donated money to the city for a city park. The understanding was that once that development was completed, that the city would in turn take and put that on their list of parks to be built. and they would fund the balance of what was needed. As of right now, the city park, or the development has been completed for 4 years. We still don't have a park. It keeps getting pushed back, and I'm just curious what the group here is planning for that park. Our grandchildren, some of the neighborhood kids would enjoy that. The money is sitting there, already given to the city from what we are told from Ents Development. So how does the city plan on putting this park in the near future?
So Shane Moore's not here, and he's over leisure services. I'm not sure where that park is on the agenda, but I've got your name and your email, and I'm pulling that aside to make sure that Shane and Mark Goebel, our park planner, get back to you and let you know that information, okay?
All right, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And if you want to even give your phone number to Christina, I'll write it on here after so that they have your number to call you.
Okay.
All right? Thanks. Got to get my glasses. Morgan Barrick. Hope I'm saying these names right.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Morgan Barrick, and I'm a member of Pride of Southern Utah leadership team. My wife, who is the executive director, couldn't be here tonight because they are downtown in Down Square preparing as a participant for the drag show event. On behalf of our leadership team, I want to talk about the significance of Pride Month and the value of being seen and the importance of belonging that every LGBTQ person and family in our community deserve. I've lived here for 20 years. There has only been queer visibility in the last 5 years, and 2 of those years were during COVID. We have an opportunity to create a city where LGBTQ people can come and feel safe. And if I'm being completely honest, we barely feel safe crossing the threshold of our own front doors. Hate crimes in Utah have doubled in the last year against LGBTQ community. So now more than ever, we need allies in our community and advocates to be brave, to step up, to speak up, and to show up. A great example of this, and maybe someone you can relate to, is our previous mayor, John Pike. When we held a candlelit vigil for the 49 lives lost in the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting 6 years ago, I remember John came to the microphone and said, "I don't know what an ally is, but I want to be one." A sigh of comforting relief fell upon our LGBT community because representation matters. Pride Month is about love, inclusion, safety, and in a time when we should be progressing, I hope we're not regressing in our love and acceptance for every member of our community, despite our differences. I want to invite you to come tomorrow night and see that we aren't here to make a political stance. We're here to spread love in our community. Thank you for your time. I hope to see you tomorrow night and at all of the events at Pride of Southern Utah. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Hey, no cheering, please. No cheering. Next, Gwen Hurd.
Hi. I'm a mental health therapist in this community, but I'm also a parent. I have a daughter who is 20 years old who just graduated from the Hollins University in Roanoke, Virginia. And she's there because here, when she came out as a lesbian, she wasn't welcome, she wasn't safe, she wasn't loved, she wasn't cared about. She came to me, she was at Tuacahn prior to the administrative changes, and it was right when gay marriage was on the docket. And her history teacher felt that that was a good time to show his political statements. So my daughter gets in the car with me and says, "Mom, I have something to tell you. I want you to know I like girls. I'm from Chicago. Bring it on. That's good for me. Like, my fear about, anyway, that's a different story. I cannot believe that I have to be here. I have people in my community that were thrilled to be seen, to be supported, to be loved, to be held. We're not just talking about the trans community, we're talking about the entire community. And when we all of a sudden say, here's a permit that you can have, and now we're not too sure you can have it because we're not too sure we agree with what you have going on, that causes suicide. I don't have the numbers, and I apologize for that. This kind of caught me all off guard. But the suicide rate here is not because of our high elevation. It is because people do not feel safe being themselves. No one turned my daughter gay. No drag show could have made her any different. It would have made her felt loved. It would have made her felt important. It would have made her felt seen. And maybe she would be an active member of this community as opposed to in New York learning how to teach there. So for me, this hits home. This hits my professional business. I can't speak to those stories. I wish I could. I implore you, as a resident, as a business owner, as a court testimonial human being, as an expert in this community, I implore you that this show is about love. This show is not about hate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Linda, stay.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come here and address you today, and thank you for your service to our community. I'm Linda Stay, and I am the mother of 3 queer children, 2 of whom live in this community. I'm also kind of the surrogate mother to probably hundreds of gay children that have been not accepted by their families, that have been ostracized by their families, that have been accused of breaking their family apart because they came out as gay. It is vital for our youth and for adults, I'm not talking just young people here, but it is vital for our LGBTQ plus loved ones and friends to feel like they can show up, that feel like they can be seen as themselves and not be afraid to walk down Main Street or attend a drag show or have a gay picnic in the park. It saves lives. It will save lives. Having this drag show event in our town sends a message. All are welcome here. It is not a political statement by any stretch of the imagination. It is an event to signal again to the LGBTQ community and their allies that you will not be shunned here in our beautiful St. George, that you are welcome. We welcome the world without discriminating. That World Ironman event was the most incredible, beautiful event. I was so proud to be from St. George. And as I have seen the backlash on social media because our St. George Police Department posted, "Love, not hate. Happy Pride." And the comments there are just sickening to me, sickening to me. And I just got the 30-second sign. So here I go. I am pleading with you as a mother, as a citizen, to allow LGBTQ events and come support them. Do as Greg said, learn about us, come meet us, hear our stories. And I promise you'll love them.
Thanks, Linda. Elise West.
Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Elise West, and it's an honor to be here this evening to share my heart and also the words of Jill Mortensen as we've been talking this past week. I'm involved in the board of the Encircle House, if you've had an opportunity to visit that, Pride of Southern Utah, and also Equality Utah. Have been involved with them for years and understand the importance of honor, respect, and most of all, love. In honor of Pride Month, I wanted to share some of what I've learned on my journey of becoming an LGBT plus ally and advocate, with the deep desire that it will inspire others to take similar steps. I know there are so many quiet supporters out there. I know because I receive multiple private messages a week from you, letting me know that you're there, that you're there. I'm grateful for each and every person who reaches out to me to let them support your family. I also want to say this with all of this sincerity in my heart. Now is not the time to stay silent. We need you to come out and visibly show your support. Our queer youth need you. Right now, they are searching for signs that they're safe to be who they are. Start small. Wear a rainbow pin, bracelet, or a watch band. Little signals that you're a safe person send a bold message. If you don't feel safe, then imagine how they feel. Put yourself in their shoes and put yourself out there. There comes a time when you must choose courage over comfort in order to make a real difference in this world. Is there risk involved? Absolutely. And there are also rewards that will far exceed even your wildest expectations. My brother passed away at age 36 from AIDS. I feel that if there were safe places for him to go growing up as a child, he would still be alive today. I'm also on a committee that is looking for safe places to have available to our youth and to anyone at any age that needs a safe place. Affogato was one of those few places, and I can count about 4 others that were safe places in St. George. We need more. So there are the 4 L's: lean in, listen, learn, and the best of all, which is my favorite, love. It will allow you to flow as a natural result of the first 3. I want to thank you for listening this evening. I am in favor of the Pride drag show tomorrow night, and I'm looking forward to it. And as a result, all of our beautiful humans that are here this evening celebrating love. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Elise. Next is Ty Patterson.
I guess so far it's me and the ultra MAGA over here. I think the budget is definitely way too much money that we should be spending, and I don't know much about everything. I'm just a working guy, and not too involved with all this stuff. But from what I've heard, definitely a lot of money we're spending. And when it comes to the drag show, I think that when all this first started, it was whatever happens in our bedroom stays in our bedroom, stay out of our business. And now it's come to drag shows and drag show story hours with children. And I think that grooming kids isn't right, and that if there is a drag show, if there is an age limit or not, because I don't think that's appropriate for children to see. I personally don't approve of drag shows. I think it's degrading to women to have these men dress up in these bizarre outfits of what they think that women really are, which I do not think that's what women are. And yeah, I got a pregnant wife at home waiting for me to come home, so that's all I have to say. I just figured I'd be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ty. Next is, I think it's Cheryl. Is there Kaplinger? Is that right? Yes. Okay. Sorry.
That's all right. Good evening. Hello, everybody. I am Cheryl Kaplinger. I am a resident of St. George, and I am a proud advocate for the LGBT community, for diversity, for the generation, and in your values, and as we said at the beginning, integrity is key. I challenge you to use the integrity that is required, that you have been elected for as a city councilor and as our mayor. Having a drag show doesn't disclude or make a statement about the negativities of sexuality or the values of St. George. This is the growth in the community that is happening, that is a part of who we are and who we want to be. We are standing up for the community that we are becoming and that we value. As someone who has moved here from out of state because I believed in what Utah stands for, I challenge you to take that step. To take that step and make a difference. Support this in your budget, support this in your attendance, support this in your heart. If you want to make a difference, be the people that you know you should be. I hope to stay in Utah the rest of my life, and I'll be at that parade tomorrow night. I hope to see you there. I hope to see all of us there in support of your integrity and your values, of making a difference, whether it's of a man, of a woman, of children, of Black people, Latinx people, people to come, people who have lived here for 70 years, people who are thinking about moving here, people who want to move back. That's my challenge to you. I'll see you there, and if so, then you'll have my vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. Next, Carly Parsons.
Hello, thanks for allowing me to speak to y'all today. My name's Carly Parsons. I was born and raised here in southern Utah, and just love living here and deeply value being able to be a part of this community. I've been a practicing mental health therapist for 5 years, and I can't speak to any specifics, of course, but I have just a really honorable and unique opportunity to share the therapy space with many folks from all walks of life, including the queer members in our very community, and hear of their most intimate and vulnerable experiences. And many of those are heartbreaking and devastating. I primarily do trauma work with folks who've experienced trauma and chronic stress in their lives. And in my research and just in my anecdotal experience working with clients, we're finding that the lack of social connection and belonging can lead to similar PTSD symptoms as other types of severe trauma that people experience. And so while I deeply honor and value the work that I do in the therapy space, sometimes it's disheartening because it feels like I'm supporting people in mopping up a mess that's bigger than the four walls of the work that we're doing. And so I guess I'm here to just encourage radical love and integrity and service to all of our community members. For those that don't feel safe being here, that don't feel dignified, and that do and that risk their lives. I was driving home from work recently, and I saw two kids that looked like teenage boys, and they were holding hands. And my first thought was, oh my God, how beautiful is that? Like, it warmed my heart. And then I got scared that was a safety risk for them, and that worried me and does, and it's real. And so we know that PTSD and trauma can cost our society a lot of money, and we have the ability as community members to prevent that from happening, to prevent suicide from happening, and events like the drag show tomorrow and other Pride events are a step in celebrating these individuals and their identities. Yeah, so thank you for your time. I'm more than happy to share further insight if anyone wants to go get a swig or on a hike. Thanks.
Brittany Carlson.
Hi, I appreciate you guys just for your time, for the opportunity to share with you. I'm just gonna read from my phone because I'm a little nervous. My question for you, is it possible to have municipal growth here without having diversity? And if it is, like, what is the precedence that we're attempting to set here? I've always felt loved and never judged for being a part of the LGBT community inside of the St. George community. Inclusivity is for our future generations and for the future of this city. I also believe that we've asked for growth. I think that we've asked for growth as a city, as we've asked for growth, we've known for years we're one of the top 10 fastest growing cities in the United States. Celebrating Pride is about community, and it provides community for those who have had any sense of family or community stripped on them based off of who they choose to love. St. George is known for its hospitality and the graciousness for athletes, people of different ethnic backgrounds, and so why not also be known for that amongst the LGBTQ community as well? It is not in keeping with the precedents that St. George people have already set. I stand with community members that this is a step forward for our children to feel safe to be themselves. The people that may be against the inclusion of Pride celebrations may not be aware that the LGBTQ community is already deep in this community. We are your neighbors, we are your family, we are your children, your grandchildren, your gas station attendants, or the people that are working in the mall, or the people that help you do your Christmas shopping, or the people that help make you healthy smoothies. We are the people that we're business owners. I really believe that this is the future and that this is happening right now. It's already steps as a country that we've made forward, and this is a huge step backwards for St. George. I think as we think about grooming the future and voters of this community, I hope we groom them for love, I hope we groom them for acceptance, and I hope that we groom them for equality. I hope that we groom them to be free to be themselves without question and without hesitation. So when you think about the oneness of humanity, what does that mean for you? This is what the oneness of humanity is. It's all humans that have been created equal in the image of God, and that God does not make any distinction between people. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. This one is August Carter Nelson, maybe? I'm not sure, sorry.
It's Nelson.
It's Nelson?
It's Nelson.
Okay.
Hi. Hi. Trans people make up 0.7% of the US population, but there are currently people in this room who think we are somehow responsible for the downfall of society. Being a civil servant is not about power and control. It is about protecting the people of the city you claim to serve. But I and people like me, members of this city, we are scared to be here because of people like that. I understand that for you, being city councilor is a part-time job, but for me, being trans is something I have to deal with every single day. And I am terrified to stand in front of you and say that because there are people who want to erase people like me from this city, from this state, from this country. But like the HBO show says, we're here. We have always been here. There is no world where you wake up one day and queer people no longer exist. But if you want us to be able to exist peacefully, you have to stand up and do something. And it's scary. It's really scary. I'm literally shaking. This sucks. But if I don't come up here, if everyone doesn't come up here and say something, how else will people know there is a need for change? How else will people know that they are cared for and accepted and loved? Being able to sit by and say nothing is not a luxury I have been afforded. I once had a boss tell me that he thought trans people should be hanged. There is right now a man in Phoenix, Arizona posting videos saying that he will hunt queer people and their allies at Target stores. I will say it again, being able to sit by and stand nothing is not a luxury I am able to afford. People like me do not live in hypotheticals. We live in the same world as you, a world where 240 anti-queer bills have been filed in the US in the last 6 months. There is no hypothetically good version of someone which exists deep down. People are made of the decisions they make every single day, and if those choices are to keep quiet when bigots act bigoted, then you are not politically neutral. You are letting homophobes know that you will not stand against their behavior. You are letting queer people know that you do not care what happens to them. You are the reason I am scared for my future. I do not care if you are scared of your job security. I do not care if you are scared of your family. I do not care if you are scared of your church. Every single queer person has to be scared of those things every day, and we are not able to tell ourselves that we are just being politically neutral while our rights are debated daily. Realistically, I'm gonna go cry in my car after this. I'm gonna go home and do my homework and finish my laundry, and I'm going to keep trying to be a person I can be proud of. I'm gonna have a breakdown in the shower, probably. Because being someone you can be proud of is not easy, but you have to keep working at it until it is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. 2 more. Lori Bristol.
I may have tears during my speech, but I really am compassionate about the LGBTQ community. All they want is to be included. They want to be part of our community. Is that so much to ask for that? When are we going to stop the bullying? When are we going to stop the hate? These are wonderful, beautiful people. All they do is want to belong to a society that's not judgmental and that's not bullying or biased. All they want to do is just live and be a part of. Please stop the hate. Let them be here. Don't let them be afraid to be don't let them be afraid of who they are because they want to be. Let them find their potential in life. They have so much potential to behold in our community. I feel like that they are meant to be here. Please open up your minds. Don't be so closed-minded to these wonderful, beautiful people that just want to belong. And please allow them to hold events. They're not hurting you. They're not pressing their gender on you. They're not bullying you. They're not making you be lesbian or gay or whatever. You can be who you want to be. And we elected you, City Council, to show support, and we want to be able to vote you in next year to be city councilman. You say we have a beautiful community and the people are wonderful. Let's act upon what we say. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last one is Sydney. And Sydney, I can't pronounce your last name, so. That's right, girl. Nobody can. You'll have to say it for us.
All right, can we hear me? My name is Sydney McKemo. We got you. All right, I know my time started, but I'm going to encourage everybody behind me and everybody in front of me to just take a breath. There's a lot of stress going on right now. There's a lot going on, and I get that. So We're going to take a little bit of my 3 minutes to take a breath. Can I hear you all behind me taking a very deep breath? Thank you. I know your job is really hard. I know some of the things that you face on a daily basis is really scary. I know that you have to make some decisions that impact our community. And I know that sometimes when you make these decisions, especially for marginalized voices, the recourse that you get from the community isn't pretty. I know some of the emails that you get that are threats, and I know how scary that can be. I've lived it. Please understand that came with your role, and you do. You understand that, and I honor you for taking that on. And understand that there's going to be a day when you get to walk away from that. There's so many people in this room that will never be able to walk away from the thing that people will justify to threaten their lives. It will be with them forever, and it has been with them forever. We have built a house we call the compound my house. It's an amazing little house. I love it. It's got all kinds of fun things so that we never have to leave. Because the moment my kids and my husband walk out, they are unsafe. We have experienced death threats in our community, just like you have. We didn't sign up for that. We didn't. And nobody else here did either. But they face it. Now there's this really great time in the year when everybody, it's like Halloween, but for like a month long, right? I love Halloween because it's the one time of the year that I've ever been able to go out and feel like I could be myself and people weren't going to judge me ever since I was a little kid. Even to this day, the way I present to you, and many of you have known me before, the way I present to you is merely a costume so that I can pass safely through our community. But there is one time of the year when I get to come out safely, and that's during June. That's during Pride Month, where I get to go to a place and people say, Sydney, we love you, and you're gonna be safe. And that's the one time for my children. My daughter saves up her money every single year because they get to leave the compound. And now I don't keep them there. I don't tell them they have to stay there, but they're afraid to go out. They're afraid of how people treat them. And I listened to this person over here, August. That was the most beautiful thing, the most brave thing. And I just ask that you hear them and remember what pride is for them. For you, it might be an annoyance and people might come after you for that. And I know I'm running out of time. Sorry, Danielle. But for these guys, it's saving their lives. And you can make the decision. However people come at you, remember you're saving a life. Thank you.
Thanks, Sydney. So I want to thank all of you for being respectful, whether you agree or disagree. I am very pleased at the civility tonight. And so I really want to thank you for that. And if you're not sticking around for the rest of the agenda, I just ask that you go outside to visit so that we can go on with our agenda because we have a long night. So thank you. So Adam, going to the consent calendar, any changes there?
Yeah, there is one change to the consent calendar. I do want to make a comment.
Try and exit quietly, sorry.
We'll take a minute.
All I know is I got here and got this. All right. Adam.
All right, here we go. So before the consent calendar, I did want to make a note that we did post a public notice as part of our redevelopment agency meeting that was originally scheduled tonight. That was for the Tech Ridge Community Development Area. We did cancel both the RDA meeting and that public hearing as well. So just in case anybody was here for that item, didn't want you to have to wait for something that's not going to be heard this evening, we'll reschedule that at the appropriate time. So to the consent calendar, there is one change that I would request the council consider, and that is for item L. That's an agreement with the Entrada Property Owners Association, and the wording in that references a public street. Those are private streets with a municipal utility easement. So I would recommend to the council that that item be removed and considered separately immediately after the rest of the consent calendar. That being said, all of these other items, hopefully you've had a chance to review the packet and the material here. Staff have found that all of these items comply with our ordinances. They're ready to go. Staff would recommend approval.
Council, any items you want to pull out other than we'll remove item L after? If not, I'm ready for a motion on the consent calendar.
Mayor, I just wanted to comment on the Electric Theater. I noticed a bunch of these are from the Electric Theater, and I think maybe you and Councilman Hughes would have been on the council when you guys decided to make that decision to refurbish the Electric Theater. And I just I work with the arts groups as an assignment for our council, and I just wanted you guys to know like what a blessing that space is for our arts groups. And I think they all would want me to thank you for refurbishing that space.
It was before my time.
Was it before you? Were you on there, Jimmy? All right, Jimmy gets credit and none of the rest of us. Thank you.
Mayor, with those comments, I would make a motion to approve the consent calendar, excluding item L.
Second. Motion by Greg, seconded by Natalie. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to, are we polling item L?
If we could go to that one now.
Okay.
In the recitals of that agreement, paragraph A references the public right-of-way and public road. That is going to be struck through and replaced with municipal utility easement located within the private road. Otherwise, everything's as presented.
Motion to approve item L on the consent calendar.
With
the amendments as mentioned by Adam.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy, seconded by Danielle. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, council, that takes us to item 3, which is a public hearing to receive input on the fiscal year 23 budget. So I've got a statement that I'd like to read to the council, and I hope that this provides some great context prior to taking public comment and prior to our budget team making their presentation. So again, Mayor Randall, City Council, good evening. This is our 6th public meeting on the fiscal year 23 budget, if you can believe that. Since January, we've been talking with you about your priorities, important capital projects for maintaining and building our infrastructure. We've talked about departmental needs and requests. The tentative budget has been available to the public on our website since May 5th, and tonight we have the opportunity to hear from the public. We've said this a couple of times. State statute requires that we hold one public hearing on the budget. We have a history and tradition here of holding 2 public hearings just to allow for that one extra meeting. So 2 weeks from tonight, we will hold another public hearing on this tentative budget. This is a large budget. Totals nearly $503 million. Now that number seems to have come as a surprise to some people. Those of us who are involved in the day-to-day of providing services to the community, however, are not surprised at all. As a regional hub, we provide many services that other communities don't. Those services cost a lot of money, as you know, Council. Our budget includes the airport, the regional wastewater treatment plant, the animal shelter, regional 911 emergency dispatch, Suntran, and the largest municipal utility in the state in St. George Power, to name a few. There are many more. We also have a parks and recreation system that is second to none. We do a lot for our residents. And although there's always room to improve, I think for the most part we do it well. So well, in fact, that the The quality of life we enjoy in St. George has made us the fastest growing city in the country. People want to be here. They want to be part of what's happening in this community. It's exciting, but it's also challenging for us as we try to meet those demands. So yes, the tentative budget is a large dollar amount. We provide many services, and I think our residents still get a good value for their money. Approximately 39%, or nearly $200 million of the total budget is for our enterprise funds. These are primarily utilities. This is our water utility, our wastewater utility, storm drainage, and St. George Power. 34% of the total budget that's planned for fiscal year 23 is for capital projects. That means nearly 1 out of every $3 that we intend to spend in this budget is for building and maintaining our infrastructure, nearly $170 million worth of capital projects. Some of these projects require the use of impact fees, which we collect at the time a building permit is pulled to make sure that new growth pays for itself. Some of these capital projects in that $170 million total include $31 million worth of improvements to our street network, 6 new traffic signals, a $13 million storm drain project on 3000 East, which will enable us to expand that road in the near future. Project's actually already underway. New fire stations, conversion of the Little Valley soccer fields to artificial turf, which will save nearly 18 million gallons of water annually. Expanding the Little Valley pickleball complex using park impact fees. Building phase 1 of the Curly Hollow Regional Park in Tonnequint, also using park impact fees. $68 million for water and sewer infrastructure, including the Graveyard Wash Secondary Irrigation Storage Project, of which the state of Utah is covering $10 million. We appreciate their help. And also a $16 million expansion of the airport terminal apron, largely paid for by the Federal Aviation Administration. That project will increase our capacity for aircraft and allow for us to accommodate more flights to a greater number of destinations. The city's general fund makes up about 20% of the total budget, about $100 million. This is where a lot of the action happens. We use the general fund to pay for our police, our fire, our streets, parks and recreation, planning and zoning, building permits and inspections, legal services, human resources, administration, golf, etc. The final 6% of the budget consists of miscellaneous funds. These are our redevelopment areas, CDBG, Suntran, and some others. Now, you've heard that a property tax increase for public safety, police, fire, 911 emergency dispatch is being proposed by staff. That is true. If this property tax were approved, the total budget would increase from $503 million to $506 million, less than 1% of the tentative budget. As a reminder, the tentative budget that you've been provided is balanced. All of those things I mentioned are included in a balanced budget without a property tax increase, excuse me. If the council were to vote in favor of a rate increase as recommended by staff, that additional revenue, that additional $3 million, would be invested 100% in public safety. We need to invest in our public safety departments. They are overwhelmed. They need help and additional resources. In order to meet those needs, we have designed a multi-year plan which we call Safe St. George. Our budget team is going to go over the details to that plan in just a few minutes, so I won't steal their thunder, but I think it's a good plan. I endorse it fully. I promise you we would not propose a property tax increase if we didn't think it was necessary. It's actually been over 35 years since property taxes were raised in St. George. We could debate, and we have, the merits of that strategy, but I will point out that with that strategy, we haven't even kept up with inflation over that time period, and as a result, we have fallen behind. I do think, however, that you'll be pleasantly surprised to see how little Safe St. George will cost compared to the value that it brings to our community. So, Council, thank you for your guidance to this point in the process. This budget ultimately needs to be balanced, first and foremost, but it needs to reflect your policy priorities. And with that, I'll turn the time over to our budget team.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Got a brief presentation I'll show tonight. Just bear with me a moment as I get that up. All right. So as Adam mentioned,
Speak loud into the mic so they can hear you in the back.
Thanks, Mayor. So as Adam mentioned, tonight's item is to hold a public hearing on the fiscal year 22-23 budget. The purpose of tonight's public hearing is to gather input from our citizens on the 23 budget. The budget was made available for public review on May the 5th on the city's website and in the city recorder's office. And as Adam mentioned, we held 2 meetings with the council to go over the budget on May the 12th and on May the 26th. The 23 preliminary budget is $502 million across all funds and reflects an increase from the 22 adopted budget of about $78 million. Of this amount, $102.9 million is proposed in the city's general fund. This year's budget reflects a focus around addressing critical needs in our public safety and in critical capital infrastructure for the city. These investments add significant increases in public safety and our personnel with new equipment and increased compensation for our public safety. In addition, adds new road improvements to the city, new fire stations, and water conservation related projects will have a direct benefit to our community and reflects the city's long-term investment in our community. A few of the highlights of some of the major investments in this year's budget include 26 new public safety personnel, along with the necessary equipment and vehicles to equip these positions and get them ready to go. 2 new fire stations with the addition of a new fire station in the Desert Canyons area and the addition of a fire station in downtown with the move of the headquarters, fire station headquarters. Continuation of the 3000 East Road project and drainage improvement project. The first phase of extending 1450 south to the Dixie Center area. A new reservoir for the secondary irrigation of the Graveyard Wash, and multiple system improvements, including new water tanks, new water lines, and the continuation of the wastewater treatment plant expansion project. In addition, there are significant improvements are included for city facilities, including the apron expansion at the airport and the roll forward of the City Hall project that was included in the 22 budget. This budget also does propose some increases in fees and utilities rates due to the rising costs of providing services to our citizens. Along with the budget's focus in public safety, in the 23 budgets, the city has developed the Safe St. George 5-year plan that outlines significant long-term investments in public safety over the coming years, which I'll cover in more details in the coming slides. Looking over the fiscal year 23 budgets compared to the 22 budget and 21 actual expenses, looking at the chart on the left, you can see by the purple bar that reflects the 23 budget that the largest area of growth in our budget has been in the enterprise funds and our capital project funds. When you look at the chart on the right, and again looking at the purple bar for the 23 budget, you can see the largest area of growth, and this is by expense type, is in our capital outlays. As a large portion of our budget is getting dedicated towards infrastructure improvements, as shown on that chart on the right. One thing I did want to note is that the 22 budget was considered a catch-up year due to projects that were cut in 2021 due to COVID. And unfortunately, due to supply chain issues, some of these projects will also carry forward in 23 as well as some of the many improvements that are included. Looking at the consolidated budget for fiscal year 23 as compared to the 3-year average of the consolidated budget, the fiscal year 23 budget reflects 45% of the budget's allocated towards capital outlay, which is significantly higher than what our 3-year average is about 13%. Again, these increases reflect the significant number of investments included in the budget for city infrastructure, in our roads, in our water and drainage systems, and our sewer systems, and so forth. Next, looking at the general fund budget, the general fund budget for 23 is $102.9 million and is broken out amongst the various services as shown in the above pie chart. To the right, with the largest amount of the pie going towards public safety, which accounts for about 39% of our expenses in the general fund budget. Major highlights in the 23 budget include the addition of 35 new positions. 26 of those are in public safety, which is our police, fire, and 911 dispatch services, based on the demand seen by our departments. In addition, we have $18 million in capital outlay that's proposed in the 23 budget, with $6.1 million of that related to improvements in public safety. As part of my presentation tonight, I also wanted to spend some time providing some highlights from the St. George, Safe St. George 5-year plan. Safe St. George is a 5-year plan which provides for investment in personnel, facilities, and equipment essential to the city's public safety department of police, 911 dispatch, and fire. Funding for Safe St. George is centered around 3 incremental property tax increases over the next 5 years for the plan to be successful and sustainable, which again will be the first property tax increases proposed for the city in over 35 years. The city has seen rapid growth over the past 10 years according to the 2020 census, with the city being the #1 fastest growing in the nation. And based on the growth projections we're anticipated to add significant growth over the coming years. Current revenue sources have not kept pace with the growing demands of our community, and in order to make our community, continue to make our community safe, the city needs a long-term, stable, and resilient revenue source to help invest in those many needs that we have identified in public safety. The overall plan will add 104 positions in our police, fire, and 911 dispatch, 3 new fire stations, 1 replacement fire station, 12 new fire apparatus, 146 new police vehicles, and increases in compensation for our police officers and our firefighters to help the city continue to recruit and retain a highly qualified workforce. These additions will directly benefit the community through expanded fire coverage, increased police presence, improved emergency response times, and expanded proactive enforcement and prevention programs necessary to meet the many growing demands of our community. In addition to these direct benefits, achieving these goals may also lead to an improvement in some of our citizens' auto and property insurance rates as we improve the ISO rate for the city, which is the insurance rating for the fire prevention in the city. The cost for these investments proposed as part of the plan is anticipated to be $89.8 million over the 5-year period. And city staff has worked hard, and we are proud to report that 74% of this plan has been funded through current city resources. The remaining 24% of the plan is proposed to be funded through 3 incremental property tax increases over the next 5 years. The estimated impact from the property tax increase proposed for fiscal year 23 is $5 per month or $60 per year to the city's portion of the tax bill for a primary home with an average market value of $548,000 per year. Just as a reminder, the city receives only 11.8% of the annual property tax bill. The majority of the property tax bill goes towards the school district and the county and other associated entities. And that the property tax bill that the city receives helps fund all the critical services that our citizens rely on, including 24-hour police service, 24-hour fire, 24-hour 911 dispatch services, street maintenance, parks, and trails. This next chart shows a comparison of the city portion of the tax bill for the average residential home as compared to our neighbors in tax year 21. From the above chart, you can see that the city of St. George is one of the lowest property tax rates within Washington County. Based on the tax year 2021 values, it's about $232 per year. Looking at the state as a comparison, when we look at the top 10 cities in the state, St. George is the lowest overall property tax bill based on tax year 2020 values. A copy of the budget has been made available on the city's website and the city secretary's office since May the 5th. More information on the Safe St. George plan will be available in the coming days on the city's website. This year, the city will hold 2 public hearings, with the first public hearing being tonight and the second public hearing coming up on Thursday, June the 16th. It's at 5 p.m. Tonight is the first public hearing, and then the tax rate public hearing is currently proposed to be held on Thursday, August the 18th at 6 p.m. Is preliminarily proposed date, but we'll finalize the date in the coming weeks. All public hearings will be held in the City Hall and the City Council chambers. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Robert?
I can just make mention that, I don't think I have any questions tonight, and that is because we've had some very robust meetings on this over the past couple months. We have definitely gone through it very thoroughly, and so I think that's the reason why I don't have any questions, at least for myself.
I would echo that, and Robert's explanation was good, and I think the city manager's original explanation was really good. That general fund budget, when we say $100 million, it sounds like a big number until you realize we have a lot of employees that make $1 million, right? No. Yeah, right. No, it sounds like with that explanation, when you realize, I don't think there's anything that we don't have in St. George that any other city in Utah does. I mean, from airport to power company to all those things that we have, there's just so many things that make up that budget that are more than just the general fund. And when you talk about capital projects, those are one-time things that we're spending money on. And with this unprecedented growth, just some of that has to occur. Now, it's up to us to decide how much of that occurs. So, and we have had a good debate, and hopefully, we can have some more before we adopt this in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, I think everyone's already heard from me in our previous meetings, but I will just say my position on this is I don't feel comfortable raising taxes when I feel like we haven't thoroughly combed through the budget to prioritize public safety versus, we're up 34% in leisure services. We have a 1.9 deficit in golf. These are all things that we could move some of those funds anyway into public safety versus raising taxes. So it's my position that we look at some of the lower priority items first before jumping to raising taxes.
Any other comments? I don't think so. Robert, Dee, Chad, thanks so much for your hard work on this budget. We appreciate it. And I know Trevor and Adam and who else was in there with you guys locked in a room for weeks? They were locked in a room for weeks, but thank you. So with that, this is a public hearing for anybody who's come to give their input on the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. And I'm going to have Danielle, you want a time in case, yeah, you've gotten good at the timer. So I just need you to come forward, state your name for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes, and then that's it.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. Excuse me, sorry. My name is Tim Jones. I live here in town. I would just like my 3 minutes so I can get through this in a hurry. So my opinions on the recreation issue at hand, parks, playfields, public art, and all that kind of stuff. These amenities bring a tremendous amount of physical and mental health to our community. The trail systems, parks, playfields, golf courses afford our residents an opportunity to enjoy the fresh air, get exercise, excuse me, sorry, and enjoy nature in a safe environment away from traffic. I've seen people of all age groups utilizing our facilities here in town. I see parents pushing toddlers and strollers, towing their youngs in the little trailers behind their bicycles in the parks and on the trails, people walking, jogging, bicycle riding, elderly people in wheelchairs enjoying the facilities. I mean, we have a wide gambit of people enjoying what the city provides. The play fields are used for soccer tournaments, softball fields, pickleball courts. The pickleball courts are overflowing. Drive by the one in Little Valley on any day during the year, and it is just crazy busy, which I think is excellent. People getting exercise, communicating, commiserating with each other, having fun and enjoying life. I mean, what more could you ask for? Same thing for the softball fields. People on a daily basis are enjoying all these things throughout the season. The trail system sees hundreds of people daily out there riding, walking, jogging, riding their bicycles, doing the things, just going for a stroll and enjoying nature, and probably most important, mental health. You need a place to clear your head in a busy town. On the weekends, it's quite busy and, to be quite honest, overcrowded on our trail system. There's so many people in town now that are taking advantage of that, which is great. But when I hear retraction of some of those services, I hear we need growth in those services. A lot of those amenities bring money to the town through the tournaments. They bring motel revenue, they bring restaurant revenue, they bring stores, shopping, car repair. People come to town, their car breaks down. There's a lot of things that these facilities bring to town. Motels, taxes get collected, wages for our citizens get paid through all this stuff. So while it looks like a big draw on city resources, some of these things do help pay their own way. And I think that needs to be taken into account.
Thank you.
My name's Adam Stewart. I've lived here most of my life, and I'm a small business owner.
I agree with you all, and I'm sure we all do, that St. George is amazing. I left as a senior in high school not wanting ever to come back here, and I'm blessed to be raising my family here and running Stewart Awning here. I'm grateful that I was corrected, how great it is. I also think that government tends to become more and more tone deaf the larger it gets. I'm afraid that's exactly what our local government is doing. I know the graphs are designed to justify taking more money from your citizenry, and I think it does just the opposite. It actually illustrates that we've successfully ran one of the best cities in the state and arguably the nation without taking more. And I think that if you had to do what I'd have to do as a business owner, you could find more than enough to continue that trend without taking more. The reality is I have 29 employees and can use 49, and I can't find any of them, primarily because the affluency is outpacing affordable living, and yet I don't see nearly enough effort or energy being spent on increasing the ability as a small business owner that is the lifeblood of your job in this city to help the affluency finance what's really being done to the city, and that is that the working class is being run right out of here. I'm grateful for Michelle. You've inspired me. In 5 years, I will be in one of these seats. I hope I'm taking one of those that is going to vote yes on this bill, because it is tone deaf. It is out of touch with reality. While we are all spending more and more daily just to get by, from a gallon of milk to a gallon of gas, you are asking for more, as if those graphs justify it, while they actually do exactly the opposite. They prove evidentially, thank you for spending so much money on fancy graphs and charts, showing that we can continue to do that if we had the fortitude. I would buy a $250,000 trail if you let me put Stewart Awning's name on it. Have you thought of that? There are a lot of small businesses that have so much pride in the opportunities we find in this great city that if you simply developed a program, many of us would cough it up, because we agree the trails and the parks in this beautiful city are irreplaceable, not unmatched, and yet government doesn't have to come up with the money like I have to for my new building, my new truck, my employees. You guys just take it. It's not going to fly. There is an upswell. She's the indicator. There's a breed that's going to be dying soon, replaced by young ladies like that and young men like me. We're coming, unless you listen to us. You do not need to take more. That you proudly sat up there and project that you do is insulting to our intelligence. It is insulting, and yes, I'm looking at you. It is insulting. You are not smarter. You are not better. In fact, I think your argument proves
I would
otherwise.
ask that you be respectful.
I think I have the support of the room. Thank you.
I don't care. I want respect in here. If not, I'll remove you. No clapping. No applause. I will have you removed. This is going to be just as civil as the first discussion was.
Susan Crook. I live at 1405 West Primrose Drive in St. George. I'm a property owner who is happy to pay taxes for government services. We need our services and we have to pay for them, and that's all there is to it. Otherwise, we don't get them. We need to support, yes, our safety services, health, safety, welfare. Those are the basic roles of government. Thank you for providing those for us. And I appreciate all those who serve in elected office. I know it is not easy. I've served as a planner, and I've been staff to elected officials. I know that you put up with a lot, and I appreciate that very much. I stand up for our parks, trails, leisure services because they bring such a great quality of life to our community, and they do pay big dividends. I sit on the Healthy Dixie Council. We discussed today the importance of healthy living, active lifestyles, and how that contributes to our mental health and saves a lot in medical bills for those who would otherwise be too stressed to survive in this hectic world. Thank you for being respectful and listening while I talk. So I support an increase to pay for our safety. I think that's very important. I have a niece and nephew who are cops, and I appreciate their service in their communities. I support public safety. I support parks and leisure services. I support those amenities that we receive and the good things that you provide as public officials and for those who serve on the staff. Thank you so much. And as a community member, I'm happy to step up and do my part to help out in the parks, help with maintenance there. I've served as a grounds maintenance supervisor at Utah State University. I know how to run crews. I also know how to work myself. So if I could be of service, please call upon me and I will be there.
Shane Moore's sitting back there. He might grab you.
Good evening. My name is Ken Schoonover. I'm a resident of St. George. I live in Sun River. Councilman Leonard, the last speaker, mentioned...
He's our city manager, by the way.
Congratulations. Good for you. They both mentioned the word that I want to focus on, and that is quality of life. The programs and services that are available to residents of Sun River, of St. George, make the quality of life and the lifestyle choices that are available to us are outstanding. They are truly outstanding, and I think St. George is unique in that respect, if not top in the country, in my opinion. To consider reducing or defunding these programs would be, in my opinion, a huge mistake. The programs and services contribute to a lifestyle that and a quality of life that is unparalleled. St. George is going through a period of explosive growth, and that what goes along with that growth is the challenge to you to manage that growth and the increase in demand on programs and services that's going to come along with that. In the face of that growth, to consider reducing or defunding these programs that are so vital to what contributes to our quality of life would be foolish. It's absolutely the wrong time to consider that kind of a budget move. Setting growth aside and the impact on that, I'm concerned about how the rate of growth here is going to affect our lifestyle. But setting all that aside and just looking at what these programs do, what they provide for us, the math is simple. If you reduce those programs, those expenditures, it's going to directly impact the quality of life that families here, children here, and even senior citizens like me currently enjoy. And I'm one of thousands of seniors who are going to be watching this very closely and encourage you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is the volume good? Thanks.
State your name for the record.
Oh, Pete. I'm Pete Ronley. I live downtown by the temple. I own a house there. I urge you to think about climate so I'm just going to read from this thing because I wrote that. I urge you to think about climate implications when you're updating electric pricing policy. As I would hope you're acutely aware, climate change is the existential challenge of our time. I believe we, and most importantly you, as a city leadership, have a moral obligation to do what we can to improve the lifestyle outlook for our children and grandchildren. To anyone who would dismiss our current crisis with the moniker, "the climate is always changing," I would argue that 5 of the Earth's 6 mass extinction events were caused by a major disruption in the carbon cycle, either way too much or way too little. And our current carbon cycle disruption blows away all of that in terms of rate and volume. The difference is that this time, there's one species responsible for the disruption, one species that also stands to suffer greatly, and one species that has the opportunity to do something about it. To electrify our energy supply, our country needs to double the nuclear, double the hydro, 30x the wind, and 50x the solar that we currently have in our country. You may have noticed we have a lot of sun here in St. George. So, 3 policy recommendations looking forward to better encourage rooftop solar and decentralized energy storage. Energy storage is key so that you don't have a bunch of solar energy dumped onto the grid when you don't need it. Number 1, there's currently a solar reliability charge. I would propose removing that solar reliability charge and replace it with a 50 cents on the dollar net metering rate. That keeps the city, revenue expense neutral, but I can explain more of these policies later. But it works out better. It works out better from an incentive standpoint. Instead of raising the base utility charge as proposed, I would consider actually lowering it, ideally to like a $9 a month charge. That's what Rocky Mountain Power does. That seems to be like kind of a sweet spot. And then I would roll those other displaced costs into the per kilowatt hour rate, preferably above that 800 kilowatt hour tier threshold. Finally, I would look at a feasibility study on implementing the virtual power plant concept, which is essentially incentivizing homeowners to put batteries into their home so that you're not dumping energy onto the grid when you don't need it. Rocky Mountain Power has a model for this, and Tesla's doing a bunch of this stuff in Texas right now. So it's kind of the way of the future. Happy to elaborate. Reach out to me. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, council and staff. My name is Colette Cox, and I'm here on behalf of the St. George Area Chamber of Commerce leadership team. And we represent over 1,000 businesses here in the St. George community and beyond. Tonight, I'd like to speak up in support of your budget. We see a lot of good things in the budget that is proposed, including strengthening city infrastructure, strengthening the airport facility, and other critical projects that support commerce here in St. George. I would also like to note our support for our police department and EMS. I've gotten to know your police department leaders over the last 2 years and have been incredibly impressed on what they do on such a small budget. And so it's very encouraging to see that that budget is proposed to be increased. Last but not least, we would like to speak out in support of parks, recreation, and the arts that make our city #1 for starting a business and a #1 place to live. They cannot be overlooked in some of these other projects. I look at the parks, recreation, and arts as kind of like the cherry on top. They really just, as pointed out earlier, again, make our community special, and not only for the people who want to live here and run a business here, but also for our visitors that bring in millions and millions and millions of dollars, as we just experienced with Ironman. I want to thank each of you for the thought and consideration that was put into this budget. Can see that a lot of time and strategy was used, and we just want to thank you for your service, and just know that you have our support. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name's Kim Pollock. I'm a resident of Sun River, and I'm here to speak in favor of the investment, the continued investment in our community that this budget has shown. My wife and I moved to St. George 6 years ago after spending 14 years of wanderlust, wandering around the country in our RV and our Jeep. I'm not sure at this point whether we picked St. George or St. George picked us. We love everything about the city. We love the investment, the people, the culture, the infrastructure, the parks, the university, the outdoor activities. Everything just appeals to why we wanted to be here. We love to get involved with the city, everything from Ironman to Huntsman Games to getting involved with charities around the community. St. George's has a way of drawing you in and pulling that out of you. But for us, there were two major factors in moving to St. George. The first one was our health care. With my 91-year-old mother and my wife and myself, health care was a very important consideration. And certainly Intermountain and all of the healthcare professionals that it provides check that box off. But the other very important consideration for us was the city's commitment to families and the culture and the outdoor activities. And one of the first experiences I had was looking and seeing the investment that was being made in the All Abilities Park that was being built at the time we first moved here. And it just blew me away that the city was supporting and building that kind of a park and facility. The trail system is beyond it's amazing the amount of bicycle trails and walking trails. We can leave our home in Sun River and in 5 minutes be on a path that can take us out past Long Valley or can take us up to Snow Canyon Parkway and up in the Snow Canyon. And that's just an incredible asset. This morning I had a dental appointment and I got on my bike and rode to my dental appointment for my annual teeth cleaning. It's those kinds of infrastructure facility capabilities that are just really important to us. Every time I'm out on the trail, I see faces. Some of them I know the names and some of them I don't. But that's just a lot of families and people enjoying the trail system, enjoying the outdoors, and it's all because of the infrastructure that's been built here in St. George. So I'd like to, again, reiterate my support for the budget and for your support of the families and the active lifestyle. I encourage you to continue to provide that support in your budget considerations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Judith Ronley. I am a resident of the city of St. George. I am a mother, and I am a person who bikes for transportation and for recreation. I tried to do a little bit of homework, but then it all fell apart when I heard the great speakers earlier. So I just want to say, to me, your trail system, arts, parks, and recreation are not the cherry on top. To me, and I know to a lot of other people too, that is foundational to a community. And I'm looking at Michelle Tanner there. I understand the financial fiscal conservatism. I think that is also very, very important. But we have to build the foundation for a community. And that is the ability for us together to move around, to use our streets, not only for getting from A to B, but in order to mingle and to have conversations. So I ride a cargo bike. That's a long, big bike. You'll see it out the door there. If you came in that door, it's parked there. It's this long thing, and my 6-year-old son can ride on the back. And I take him to school on that. I take him to the dentist, wherever I ride with him, anywhere, and I take him places. And people ask me about that bike almost every day they see me out there. And I talk to people across the aisle, whatever political affiliation, age groups. It really, people from across, like, a lot of people come up to me and talk to me and are excited about this bike. And that is because it's a wonderful and fiscally very responsible way to get around. I don't care about the rising gas prices right now or tax. I don't, I pay my property tax just to get that out of the way too. So I pay for our roads and for our infrastructure, but I don't have to pay that much for getting around, and that is fantastic. The thing is though that, and that's why a lot of people don't ride their bikes even though they're excited about it. The thing is though, I don't want to pay for it with my life. And I don't want my son to pay for it with his life. We talked a lot about saving lives earlier. Investments in infrastructure, and not only for people who drive, but for people who walk, who roll on wheelchairs, who bike, who use the scooters, are foundational for this infrastructure, for this community. I apologize. So please keep up the good work. Thank you so much for your service. And keep that in mind when you continue discussing the budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Bob Clarich. I reside in Sun River and have been there for over 15 years. When I was about to retire, my wife and I actually were retiring pretty much at the same time from Ogden. We scouted out 5 different potential retirement locations. And it took some convincing, but I had the longer straw, and so Sun River ended up being the choice, with the option that if it didn't work out in the first year, we're going to go to option 2. The reason that St. George was so interesting as a place to move to and retire to included the fact that the community looked like it had the right ingredients in terms of not only weather and expenses and so forth, but also the commitment of the community towards outdoor recreation. And so that was one of the main reasons I really wanted to move here. I know that 15 years ago, the trail system wasn't nearly as big as it is now. I know that not all the parks that we now have were built back then. It's come about as the population increased. And right now, we've got another growth spurt that looks even bigger than what we've had in the past. Once upon a time, say 11 years ago, there was thought in the pickleball community that we needed to help the city decide or help someone decide to build more pickleball courts because there's so many pickleball players. And remember the meeting that we had people on the side of private investment and those that were for public investment. And I was one of the ones that lived in Sun River. And I said, well, I live in a community that's private. We need public courts because there's public players all over the place. So that's the way we went. And we did it in part because the city of St. George is so good at handling recreation, providing great opportunities that make sense in the right places. So I'm here to encourage you, especially with the growth that we're experiencing right now, to go forward with this budget you've proposed. There is a slight increase in the property taxes, but I'm afraid with the growth that we're having, that's one of the things we have to deal with. It's not enormous and we can live with it. Keep on doing what you've been doing. You've been doing a great job in terms of everything that we have in the city, including parks and rec and art. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tom Butine. I've met many of you before. I've come here to speak not just for the budget as it is, but for the process that you've used to derive the budget. My background's in engineering and program management of commercial airplanes. Very big management process. The budget process is very complicated. It's all driven, though, by common elements across any management area, including management of a city. A vision, a mission, goals, objectives, strategies to achieve those, and the budget items and the budget amounts come out of that. The city seems to me to be well managed. There is a well-stated set of vision, mission, goals, objectives. Strategies could be less opaque. It's kind of difficult to derive strategies the city's using to develop budget items, but nonetheless, the vision, mission, goals, and objectives are pretty clear, and the budget items and the amounts in the budget items seem to reflect those. If there are issues with the budget items or the amounts allocated to those items, it should be chased back through the process to the vision, mission, goals, and objectives. If those are not right, then that should be brought to the surface. There should be a community engagement. And it seems to me in the past there has been good community engagement in the planning process on vision, mission, goals, and objectives. Those should be setting the directions, the strategic direction for the city, and it seems that they are. So I support the budget the way that it is. I support the process. I also support the resolution of issues with budget items and budgeted amounts, chase them back into the strategic planning process and address them there appropriately. Way less than 3 minutes. I could say too, I didn't know the extent of the pride issue here when I came to the city council meeting tonight, so that was a bit of a surprise to me. I'm a facts and data guy from my background. I think gender identity is not a matter of choice, and it should not drive fear into into individuals or into the community.
Thank you.
My name is Jeff Einbender. I moved to St. George in October of 2020.
Can you speak louder into the mic just so we can hear
yes.
you a little better? Thank you.
I moved to St. George in October of 2020. We ended up here because of my wife's love for southern Utah. And since we've been here, all of the wonderful things that people have said in this meeting about the city of St. George and the surrounding area is all applicable to myself and my wife and our experience and all the family who's come to visit us here. So it is a wonderful place to live and to enjoy life. I happen to be retired now. And so I would like to address the issue of your roles as city council. You, I'm sure, I'm not telling you anything new, but you are stewards of government and the funds that it takes to run this wonderful city. And I am coming from the state that I did, which is Washington State. I can tell you that I have met many people from other states who are, I believe, in large part responsible for the explosive growth that you're experiencing in St. George. And that is because people are fleeing states where government has become irresponsible and don't realize, or they've lost the vision of their role as stewards of the city, the people, the resources that they are given, and the power to govern. And so I would encourage you to consider strongly whether this budget is necessary as it stands to maintain what we already have here and to support growth in the future. I think Michelle Tanner's observations that there are other places within the budget that you could look to accomplish your vision of and planning for the growth that St. George is experiencing. And if you do that, I believe you will have the support of not just people who think this is a wonderful place to live, but people who can admire the city council for being wise stewards of their government responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Patricia Kent, and I appreciate the fact that we have the opportunity to express our opinions and ideas. Not that I believe that they are even adhered to whatsoever or considered. I am totally opposed to this budget. We are living in a time when we don't know tomorrow if we're going to have enough money to buy food or if we're going to have food in the stores. Gas prices are skyrocketing. In the last 5 days, they've gone up another 10 cents. And it's going to continue to go up because of our federal government, who is out of hand. And here we now have a city council trying to decide whether they're going to increase our taxes so that you can benefit a few, not the majority, a minority of the people in this community. I have lived here for over 40 years, and I've watched St. George grow. When I came, there was no Bloomington Hills. The fields in Washington were actually fields. There was no houses in Santa Clara up on the heights. What has motivated the growth? The almighty dollar for those who sit in council. We need to be cutting taxes, not increasing taxes. Have you ever stopped to think what this city's going to do if we have a major disaster? Because I've been to many city councils, I've never once heard anything about a disaster plan. I even worked for the police department for 2 years in their preparedness program, and they've now done away with that. It's not if, it's when we will have one. I think that our elected officials have forgotten what your responsibility is. The gentleman before me just pointed out, you are stewards. You have been elected by the people. You raised your hand, every one of you, and swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the state constitution against foreign and domestic interference. The government was set up by the people to protect the people, not to give them every amenity, not to make their lives wonderful. If we can't get our butts out and do our own exercise and our recreation without all of these parks, there's something wrong with us. I don't have to walk on your trails. I walk around my block and around the other areas, and everyone else can too. I love what you've done as far as putting that there, but I also am totally opposed to putting us and the bondage of more debt on the people in this community than they already have.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Bean. I am just a resident here, and I am really grateful for you all for being here. I know it's a hard job what you guys do. I agree that I think it's overstepping your job, your bounds of what you do to decide on spending our money on parks and recreation. I think to overspend and to increase the taxes on that, especially at this time when Patricia's right, there's people that can't even feed their own families right now. And I know to a lot of us it seems like a minuscule amount, but to some people that's a big amount, and they're barely scraping by. And I notice a lot of the people who are in support of the budget are retired people who probably have a nice nest egg and they don't have a problem supporting their family. They don't have children to provide for, little kids. So I think it's not the right time, and it's a little bit I would say a lot, but overstepping the bounds of the role of city council. This is somebody who loves, I probably run on the trails every day. I love the trails. I understand what, I can totally put myself in your shoes in wanting that. But now that I've learned in the last year and a half, the Constitution, I've been reading it like crazy and understanding the proper role of government. I'm floored that I voted for people who or like, I'm going to make the trails better. I'm like, oh, that's what I want too. Okay, then I'll vote for you. So non-integrity for me to do that. And I feel I'm ashamed that I voted for someone based on that. Also, my thought is, I would love to fund these things. Why don't we be creative about that funding? Instead of increasing taxes, why don't we go to businesses or go to the community and do some kind of crowdfunding? Like, let's be creative in thinking of new ideas to fund things. Like, maybe you have thought of that, but I think there's an opportunity there. Also, one more thing, if I have another moment, I'm just going to read this. This is a quote by Milton Friedman. The essential notion of a capitalist society is voluntary cooperation, voluntary exchange. The essential notion of a socialist society is force. And I just think we need to be really careful when it comes to spending the people's money, that we're not going down that road of socialism and forcing the majority to pay for the minority. And yeah, and I agree with Michelle and Patricia and the Stewart awnings guy. And I just wanted to be a voice for, let's be a little bit more cautious and careful and not jump so fast at supporting this budget. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Erica Hodges, and forgive me, my thoughts are not collected, but just want to share my personal experience. If inflation is around 9%, 10%, I think it's a lot higher, but if that's what inflation is, then I think we should be looking at our budget and seeing how we can cut that much, at least to maintain a balanced budget. Last year, my property taxes went up 16%. I know it wasn't St. George City tax, but 16% on my home. And if you are proposing adding to that burden, I ask you to reconsider. I support fully funding our police and fire department. I have law in my family, and I know they are essential. I also know that when the budget year is coming and they're going through the magazine to see what new light bar they can put on their car because they have to spend before the budget is over, that's disconcerting to me. We need to be very careful in how we spend tax money. I took my children to the police department so they could meet the police and so we could learn about how to support the police and how they help us in our life. And I was told at the window, we don't have anyone here that can meet with you. I was turned away from our police department to talk to my children because they didn't have someone accessible. They pointed to a sign on the wall and said, call that number. If we cannot be accessible, there's a problem. Another issue I want to bring up, when the flooding happened a few years ago, people in my neighborhood, I know 10 personally, but I know there were a lot more down through by the cemetery and down that swath. And I believe it was because the city pond failed. It could be wrong, but I think it failed and our area got hit very hard. I love the parks and I love spending time on trails, but it was not worth the thousands of dollars of damage to my home because the drains in my neighborhood had not been serviced for over 2 years. I grammar requested that from the city because the city would not tell me a simple answer. When did you last service the drains? You can't have that information unless you grammar request it. The grammar request showed that drains in my neighborhood and in my family's neighborhood and down on 700 South had not been serviced for over 2 years. Please spend the money and efforts on infrastructure and our essential services before you think of adding another trail or another park. And I encourage you to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's John Harmon, and I'm speaking to you about the defunding potential. I grew up in the Midwest. The only thing between the North Pole and my house was a barn. The snow stopped at my house. Each time I moved, I came further south. I met my wife. I raised my children up in Salt Lake City area. I came down here constantly for trips with the soccer teams, with the softball teams, with the football teams. And we got to love this city for what it was because whenever there was a break between the sports games, we would go and look at model homes and visit different parts of the city. And anyway, to finally retire, move down here, and enjoy this. I am an avid, my wife is an avid athlete. She runs, she plays pickleball, we bicycle, we hike, we walk. We take advantage of all these opportunities that we have here in this great city. So with the added growth that's constantly coming here, I wish we could stop it, to be honest with you. If you could put a wall up instead of down in Mexico, if you could put it right at the south end in the town, that'd be great. But anyway, the bottom line is you know, as the city grows and as those sporting events that bring all this money here, we have to continue to grow in that respect. And as far as the softball diamonds and pickleball courts and what have you, all that generates money, and that's what helps this city thrive. So I am for that. I wish the taxes, if we could curtail that for a while until the economy gets a little bit better, that would be great too. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm back. All right, we'll be really quick.
State your name for the record for
Sydney
Christina.
McKemo. Hello, everybody. Online, that world is polarized and mean and just vicious. And the media, like, I mean, anybody who watches the news, oh my goodness, it's horrible. I do not want to watch TV. I do not want to be online because it's despicable and people are mean and horrible. But the moment, even in my own neighborhood, our own neighborhood little Facebook group, it's cute, but they're mean. But when we get out onto the trail. So I'm living in this neighborhood that's like being built up. It's cool. It's cool. It has some trails coming in. Really excited. I love the maps that's coming in. Can't wait. We're waiting for some parks to come. Gonna be amazing. Right now, the kids are playing out in the cul-de-sac, which is good. It's got like a whole, like take us back to the 70s vibe. But it would be great if they had a place to like play with the other kids and not like fall down and skin their knee. I get it. We're building. Things are coming. But the cool thing is when we jump offline, or the kids get off the TV, or they stop playing the games and they go outside and they play, the tone changes. Everybody's getting along. We are friends. When I go out for a walk on the trail and I see people, it's different. People are going to treat you differently than they do when it's online. So while I understand, and I'm so grateful that you're questioning whether or not you should be putting your hands in my pockets, thank you very much, I would consent to that, actually. Take my money and go ahead and pay for those things, because they're super important for the safety of our kids, to provide places for them to walk and run and play and get along with people and interact with people in a way that is not what they're seeing in the gaming world or online and things like that. And I know they can play out in the streets and things like that, but parks and trails are this meeting place for our community to grow and connect and love each other. And if we're gonna be growing, we better connect and find a way to love each other, or it's gonna get really ugly. So it's ugly online. Let's keep it in person. Pay the money for it. I support that. Number one. Number two, police. Wow, there was a lot of money going to the police and the EMS services. And guess what? I say to that, fabulous. We need more of them if we're going to be growing. And I know that's a shock. If anybody knows me, I'm like, but I'm saying give them some money. But please, and I was looking through the budget and trying to get a better understanding of this, but if we're going to be hiring more police officers, please make sure there is funding so that we are treating any kind of like mental health. If we're going to be sending them out there and asking them to be addressing people in mental health crises or drugs and things like that, please, for the love of God, don't just put more officers on and give them a raise. Yeah, do that so we get the best officers, sure. But also make sure that they are getting the services that they need and make sure there's money that's going towards it. I'm going to look further into the budget, and I hope there's things going to that. And I'll be back in a couple weeks so we could talk some more. Whew, I made it in the time. Bye, guys.
Hello, my name is Richard Falconer, and I'm here to, well, I'm going to start out with a quote. I came here from California, and one of the things I heard Dennis Prager talk about is the bigger the government, the smaller the citizen. Well, what are we doing here? Anyway, I think there's so many good things you did in the budget. I'd like to see the police getting more of the resources. You probably could keep bumping that up, in my opinion. But it's more a matter, to me, to look for areas that you can reduce what you're spending. Especially right now, if you haven't heard, we may have a tsunami wave of inflation and problems coming our way. And now's the time to plan for that and put things off. If it doesn't have to be done now, do it later. Think of creative new ways to have what we have now and not spend taxpayer money. And I'm going to go back to my old favorite, one you've heard before. Why don't you lease out the 4 golf courses you have and make those revenue positive? Because right now, I think, I'm probably wrong on the exact number, but you're spending $8 million at golf courses and $6.5 million or something coming in. That's $1.5 million that doesn't need to be spent by taxpayers. You could lease those out. You could put any kind of conditions so they don't turn into housing developments you don't want, and you could make it any way you want, but it would be a positive way to cut 8% out of the budget. You can't take it all out. I understand that, but please, please consider delaying things that don't have to be done. And I noticed you did mention that in your budget, that some of it was, if all things, work out, you'll build a new city hall and things like that. And I'm glad you recognize that you do have to take the times we're in into consideration. As a retiree, I can tell you right now that the inflation that we're experiencing now, and that I fear is going to just get worse, has impacted what I can and cannot do in my life. And I just didn't even know you were thinking about increasing property taxes again. That is outrageous. So I'm gonna close with another little quote by someone I admire. You probably do too. And it's, "You can't always get what you want, but you get what you need." Mick Jagger. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Alan Olds. Some of you guys know me. I've been here 18 years, and I'm a retired police officer, and I did not retire from here. And the reason I didn't retire from here is because I didn't want to live in poverty, because that's what you guys pay the police and firemen here, and ambulance. You pay them nothing. So my last department, I stole a dozen policemen from here to come work for me. And the reason I did that, it was simple. Do you want to make $45,000 to $55,000 a year, or do the same job and make $85,000 a year and be able to afford to live? These guys that work here, your firemen, your policemen that live here, your ambulance guys, they all got 2 or 3 jobs. They can't afford the homes that are here. How are we going to get them? How are we going to get these 26 new officers with $5.5 million in a budget for police? Is nothing. I'm letting you know. I mean, I think you guys do a really good job running the city, but you're going to get officers that come here that want to do this because that's what they want to do, and in 3 years to 6 years, they're going to leave. And all you are is a perpetual training agency. That's all it is, because you know, when it hits the time to retire, I don't want to retire on $30,000 a year. And you can't afford to live. So I know that the money is somewhere in there, and as a city manager, you got to be responsible for everybody. But if we want to get good cops and good firemen, I mean, we have great cops, great firemen right now, but if you want them to stay and make this their community, you're going to have to come up with $5.5 million and not let Desert Rose or whatever it is put in a 20-acre lake. You know, make them pay for it. If they're going to steal our water and do other things, make these big corporations that are coming in here. However you got to work your magic, have them do it. You know, but I'd hate to see all these young men. I know some of you guys have cops in your families and firemen in your families. I hate to see these young men, young women come here and work and then have to leave because they can't afford to live here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joshua Akins. I work in St. George, and I came here 25 years ago. And it was really interesting to be invited to come and listen tonight and listen to Adam speak and kind of wrap my head around the comments of the public. And I think what I want to say is, Natalie, I appreciate your willingness to speak up and say, "Oh, I'm sorry." Okay. Yeah. You're the two that I haven't met very well yet, so I'm sorry. Michelle, I appreciate you speaking up because, to be honest with you, I don't think that you're the lone voice of this council or any of these people saying that we have to look at everything and we have to be really responsible about how we're spending that money. I bet you every single one of these people have that voice in their head too. It's just a little harder, or you know, you're being brave and stepping up and saying, hey, this is something that we really have to look at. And I really appreciate that. And I don't speak from a place of deep knowledge on the budget, but I do, as a resident of St. George and as someone that has spent a lot of time working towards economic development and the success of the future of our community, I agree with one of the speakers earlier that talked about the quality of life in the area as more foundational, as more key, important for us to be able to build successful businesses and have successful commerce in St. George. And the last guy talked about make the big corporations pay for it. we're trying to build corporations. We're trying to build big corporations, and we're going to pay for a lot of this stuff. But we've got to have a good balance. Or like, we got to have a good place to live and a good place to grow. So I do appreciate what you said. I think that I've watched over the last 25 years a ton of fiscal responsibility from our local and community government. I love that. I think Adam said 30 years. We haven't raised the property tax once
35.
in 35, excuse me. Okay, 35 years. So love the fiscal responsibility. But I do also agree, I think that there's a time when we see the kind of growth that we've had, that we have to consider doing things like that to make sure that we can continue to grow and create the tax base that can pay for all the amenities and all the things that we love about being in St. George. Thanks, guys, so much for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Judy Randall. I also am a resident of Sun River. Right off the bat, I want to just let you know I take offense of her saying that we retired people in Sun River don't have financial responsibility. Ma'am, we do. We do. We still do. Just so you know. Anyway, I'm here. I want to tell all of you thank you for the incredible job you're doing for St. George. I'm here to support your budget for law enforcement, fire department, and medical emergency services. They do an incredible job here, and some of our residents in Sun River are a little bit difficult to deal with, but we have never had a complaint about any of those services, my knowledge. And they do a wonderful job for us, and we appreciate them. And I know that St. George is short police officers right now, and I understand the budget is $3 million more for them. And as you look around the world and see what we've become in the United States, I don't think you can put a price on law enforcement anymore. And when the starting wage is $21 to $22, I'd like to know anybody on this council or anybody in this room that would go out and risk your job or your life every day, your safety every day, for $21. And it was bad enough, it was dangerous enough in law enforcement before you had all this political mess come in and put a target on their backs. You tell me anybody else that will do that job for $21. Anyone that complains about that budget, then let them move to Chicago, New York, where you can't even walk out on the street. So I just want you to know how much we appreciate you. You do a wonderful job for all of us out in Sun River, and hang in there. Doing a great job.
Thank you.
Betty Hackett, and I've lived here in St. George 17 years, a transplant from California, and we are certainly becoming another California city here. Shame on you if you have to raise taxes with all the growth that we have. Something is wrong. And I don't use the bike paths. I don't use the trails. I walk my neighborhood just like Patricia Kent. And I don't play pickleball. And for those who are so concerned about pickleball, there's a $1 million pickleball court being built in St. George with stadium seating. And shame on you for even thinking about raising taxes. And thankful for Michelle Tanner. She's the only conservative voice on this council.
Any other comments before I close the public hearing? With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Go ahead.
Anybody want to take a bathroom break? I'm dying up here. Am I the only one?
No, I just had to go.
I'm happy to continue.
No, let's take a 10-minute break. All right, we're ready to resume. And yes, the city attorney told me I looked like a grandma in my shawl, and I really don't care because I am freezing. Oh, yes, the former city attorney. Oh, well, I look less grandma-y. Thank you. Adam. Oh, Wes.
You guys ready?
Yeah, we're ready, Wes. Let's rock and roll.
Okay, I'm ready to go. Item 4 is a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance to vacate a portion of an existing sewer right-of-way easement belonging to the city of St. George located approximately 2450 east and 1170 south in the Springs Estate subdivision. So if you look right here, this is the easement. The existing easement is the red lines, which gives an easement, I think it's 25 feet wide for an existing sewer line that comes through this property that will be part of the Phase 11 subdivision. The city is going to upsize that line in the near future, and so as part of this subdivision, they actually installed a dry sewer that's the size of pipe that they will need in the future. So with that upsize, they required widening of the easement to account for that larger sewer, right?
Almost. I'm Cade.
Cade's covering me in case I don't get it all right.
We have already installed a second line in that easement. And the existing sewer line is going to stay. The property owner approached us, and we actually installed it on the side where the easement's shifting. So the new location is wider, and it's actually in a better place for us. So we fully support the change. So
Thank you, Cade.
no problem.
Any questions for Wes?
Nope.
If not, I'm ready for a motion. Oh, never mind. It is a public hearing. So I will open up the public hearing for anyone who has come to comment on vacating this portion of the existing sewer right-of-way easement. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consideration of an ordinance to vacate a portion of existing sewer line right-of-way easement belonging to the city of St. George located at approximately 2450 east and 1170 south, the Springs Estates, Phase 11 subdivision.
Second. Motion by Natalie, seconded by Michelle. This requires a roll call vote. All in favor, starting with Michelle.
Michelle Tanner, aye. Natalie Larson, aye.
Greg MacArthur, aye.
Jimmy Hughes, aye.
Danielle Larkin, aye.
Motion carries. Sharon.
All right. So item number 5 on your agenda is a resolution authorizing Juneteenth, National Freedom Day, as a city-recognized holiday. And the resolution declares that the city will recognize Juneteenth, National Freedom Day, as a holiday, and it also grants an additional 8 hours of leave for eligible employees to take time off in observance of Juneteenth. And the state has authorized Juneteenth as a state holiday, and many, probably most, if not all, have all government entities within the state have authorized Juneteenth as a holiday also. And if they haven't yet, they probably will be considering it. Any questions?
We called around to ask local cities around Washington County what they were doing, and most of them were recognizing it as a national holiday. So, council, it comes back to you for your decision.
Okay. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution authorizing Juneteenth, National Freedom Day, as a city-recognized holiday.
I'll second.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Greg. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion. Oh, it is a roll call resolution. That's right. Starting with Danielle.
Danielle Larkin, aye.
Jimmy Hughes, aye.
Greg MacArthur, aye.
Michelle Tanner, aye.
Motion carries. Hey, Carol.
Hi, Carol Davidson. Item number 6 is to consider approval of an ordinance approving a development agreement between the City of St. George and Friends of Switchpoint, Inc. for the Point to allow residential housing in the general commercial district located at 999 East Red Hills Parkway. So I'm just here to talk about the development agreement. This is for a project to be called The Point. And I pulled up the map here. I don't have a fancy PowerPoint, sorry. But I do have the location here. We've got Red Hills Parkway right here, and this is 1000 East. And this was the old, I can't remember the name of the hotel. It was a Motel 6
Suites.
extended stay or something like that. So this is the location, and what this Friends of Switchpoint are wanting to do is turn this place into a shelter for, well, more of a long-term rental place. There will be studio apartments, there will be 50 units, and they will be available for residents of St. George. There's 2 qualifying factors. They have to meet less or 55% or less of the medium income for St. George, or well, it's the area median income, which would be, well, the area median income is 55,000, and so it's, I believe, 34, anything 34 and under. And then the other qualification is they have to have one of the listed disabilities on the American Disabilities Act for disabilities. So those 2 items qualify them, and then they either get reduced rent or free rent, depending on where they're at on the scale. So this is the location, and the reason why we're here tonight, the reason why you're listening to me, and we have this development agreement, is because this is in a C3 zone, and we don't allow residential in a C3, but this development agreement allows us to proceed to allow residential units at this location. The development agreement has a line in it that states that, and I'm just going to read it because it makes sense. We allow residential in the C3, and it states that the project is consistent with the purpose and intent of the relevant provisions of the city code and general plan, and can occur within the general commercial district. So basically, it makes sense. This isn't going against the zoning regulations or the general plan. I'm sorry, I'm like trying to go really fast, and I'm just feeling like because I'm like, you guys are like, hurry, okay. But I don't want to mess this up because this is a really cool project. There's 2 phases. This is the first phase, and then this land up here will be the second phase. The second phase will have 60 units. Those will be 1-bedroom units. And they're hoping to have, I'm sure they will have success with the first phase, and then they will build the second phase when they're ready. They're also, with this first phase, they will be putting in an office. They will have office space. They're going to expand the office space with the second phase. So they'll have a place to do counseling, to work one-on-one with the residents on helping them find jobs and things that they need. Any other important points? I think that's about it. Any questions for me? There is representation here from Switchpoint if you have any questions, further questions for them or for myself.
The parking is only 1.5 a car.
Yeah, the parking, and I did have that in the staff report. The parking is 1.5. Most of the people
It says 0.5 in my report.
Sorry. You're right. It's 0.5. Right now they're overparked, so they only need 20. Let's see, I wrote it down. They only need 26 parking places or spaces, but they have 53. So they're technically overparked for this one, but they're asking for 0.5 because most of the residents will not even have a car.
But if they're adding additional office space, won't people be coming and going and those employees being parking?
They will be parking according to our standards for the office space. So they'll be parking 1 space for every 250 square feet for the office space. So they'll meet the regulations in that aspect. It's just the residential living quarters that they won't. And it's in the staff report, but I will mention here tonight that there are 3 bus lines that are within 3 blocks of this location. As mentioned, they feel most of the residents won't have a vehicle. They'll be able to take a bus. The Switchpoint Boutique is right across the street. They offer jobs. So that's their, how they're mitigating the lower parking.
And is this already operational? Like people are already staying there?
No. No.
So just so I understand the dynamic, so is City of St. George essentially donating the property for then Switchpoint to run with their nonprofit, or?
No.
We don't own that property.
They own it.
We don't own that
No.
property.
Switchpoint.
Oh, okay.
The development agreement and the point of us being here tonight is because they're asking for residential living or quarters in a
commercial.
C3
in a commercial
Got it.
zone. And this typically is something that we could think about rezoning, but it just made sense to do a development agreement in this situation.
David Dangerfield is here. David, do you know what the point in Salt Lake, which is a similar project, what percentage of those individuals own a car?
David Dangerfield, chairman of the Switchpoint Board of Directors. We have 100 at the point in Salt Lake. We have 120 residents, and I think we have 10 cars.
Will you offer that same shuttle service that you do at the point in
Yes.
Salt Lake? Like you'll
Yes.
be able to facilitate those
Yes,
people?
we
That's
will.
great.
And the offices that Carol alluded to will be really case managers coming and going, so there won't be, like 40-hour office staff there. And then one of the things we are also going to do is, the portico, if you're familiar with it, it was called the Studio 6, that portico, that we intend to enclose that so that there will be a kind of a community gathering space and for socials and those kinds of things. Right.
So just to clarify too, I think another question that Councilwoman Larson mentioned, this is to move to more towards a long-term residential. As a hotel, it fits the commercial, and for short-term, it fits. So to answer the question correctly, are there people staying there already? Yes. The answer is yes.
My concern with that is like getting the cart before the horse. Should we have seen this before now?
Well, they're legally staying there right now. They're just asking to stay there in a different capacity.
So it's in a short term.
Yeah, we're running it as an extended stay hotel. Yeah, so then they'll transition. It will become permanent supported housing. Two things I think that should help to clarify. We've also agreed that we put. You asked about the ownership. We own it now. We purchased that from the other hotel owner. And we've agreed to a deed restriction on that property, so it will always be at 55% or lower. Our intended lease rates right now will be $500 for a studio apartment. They'll be up from that a little under $600 for once we do the second phase. And obviously, you all are very keenly aware of the need for deeply affordable housing here. And this will do it and be able to convert it to permanent supported housing as we go along.
And just to clarify, women are allowed there as well,
Yes,
right?
yes, men and women.
Thank
and
you.
And they will all have they will all have a case manager
Perfect, thank
to
you.
assist.
Which is a key that the Switchpoint model understands, is that it's not, case management is a key to helping people overcome poverty and homelessness.
Exactly.
And then, David, just quickly so the council knows the funding sources, not by name, but private versus government, just basic percentages.
We normally, as a board of directors, we try to set the right example, and so we recognize that there has to be a public-private partnership for a number of these safety net kinds of services and programs. We run, right now, we're at 60% where we generate the funds ourselves through resource development, philanthropic, but also the what we call the micro industries, and the micro industries would be like our thrift stores and the doggy daycare and our tower garden, our vertical farming that just started today, recently this week. And that kind of does two things. It helps generate revenue, but it also provides opportunity for employment skill training for our folks, because so many of them have been out of the labor force for a while. So it's running right now, Councilman Hughes, it's running at 60-40, 60% private and 40% governmental funding through state grants and other things. So,
Perfect.
other question?
Well, I just feel like we need to commend you. Councilman Hughes is on the Switchpoint board. David, Carol, Shirlane, is Shirlane on the board?
Yes. Actually, just to remind some of you, there was an agreement that we built into our bylaws at the time at which we privatized everything. Switchpoint had kind of a birth where the city had some employees there, and then Friends of Switchpoint had employees there, and then we fully privatized, and it is a nonprofit. But when we did those bylaws, we required in those bylaws that the city always will have 2 positions on the board of directors, and that those positions are appointed by the city. And so it's not an advise and consent. It's whoever you send us. We're really glad for the 2 you've sent us. Thank you very much.
We sent you some good ones.
We're doing a great job.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, you know, for people who don't know, Switchpoint is a model for the entire state, probably for the entire nation, just because of the way that Carol always says we're giving people a hand up instead of a handout. And that model has worked so well, you know, not only to help people get out of poverty or, you know, if they're lacking a home, lacking jobs. I mean, you guys help them with everything. If they're lacking documentation, right? Like anything that they need, mental health. So it's just a really commendable model. So thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? If not, I'm ready for a motion.
I'll go ahead with a motion that we approve the development agreement with the City of St. George and Friends of Switchpoint for the point to allow for residential housing in a general commercial C3 district.
I'll second.
Motion by Jimmy, seconded by Danielle. This is an ordinance. All in favor, starting with Michelle.
Michelle Tanner, aye.
Natalie Larson, aye.
Greg MacArthur, aye.
Jimmy Hughes, aye.
Danielle Larkin, aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Carol Davidson again, and FYI, I am not the Carol that was being talked about in the previous case. I wish I was that good, but I'm not. So anyway. I am here to read number 7, which is to consider approval of an ordinance amending the Fields at Mall Drive Planned Development Commercial Zone to allow construction of a 12,500 square foot bank on approximately 1.41 acres located at the northwest corner of Mall Drive and Sandia Road for a project to be known as Fields Property State Bank Office. Okay. Just go over this presentation. So here we are location-wise, Sandia Road. For those that don't know, that's this part, and then it turns into 3000 as it heads south. And then we have Mall Drive, and we're right here at the corner. The zoning right now, as mentioned, is planned development commercial. And the land use map does show this as commercial potential. So here we are with a zoomed-in location, or aerial view of the location, and it's this lot right here, and this is the site plan that they've provided, their conceptual site plan. This is the location of the bank. It is on the approved use list. It will be a 2-story building, 12,500 square feet with 6,000 plus on each floor. Both floors will be used for bank usage only, for the bank that will be here. Parking requirement, they are required to have 50 parking stalls, and they've provided 63, so they're overparked. They will provide a share access. They have 2 access points, one on Mall Drive, which is a right-in, right-out, and then one here on Sandia. This right-in, right-out on Mall Drive will be shared with lot number 2, which is to the west. And then they are providing pedestrian circulation. The concept landscape plan is just this green space. We, of course, will make sure they are meeting all the regulations when it comes time for landscaping. The maximum height on the building will be 39 feet 4 inches at the tallest point. And here's some elevations. This is what you'll see when you're on Mall Drive. This will be facing west, the vacant lot. The top picture will be facing the church, the back side, the north side, and then facing Sandia Road will be the photo down at the elevation shown down at the bottom. Here's some perspectives, some 3D perspectives. Once again, this is looking, there will be several here looking from Mall Drive, different angles. Once again, looking from Mall Drive and part of the side. Mall Drive again. And then here's a view looking from Sandia, pretty much the corner of Sandia and Mall Drive. And then that same perspective and the perspective in the evening time. There is a color board here. As you can see, the products here, this is just a replica of it, but that's what it's actually going to look like. We did have a public hearing for this at the Planning Commission. There were no comments during the public hearing. The Planning Commissioners did recommend approval with one condition, that the shared access agreement or a shared access easement for the other property is established when they put the plat together for the final plat for phase 2. Any questions for me? Or there is representation here as well.
Yeah, Carol, I know it's not striped yet, but is the intent for those people to exit right on Sandia when they come out of that drive-through? Or they intend to come around the building and onto Mall Drive? Do they?
You know, I don't know which way it
just looks a lot safer to come out on Sandia.
I'm assuming they're coming this way because usually they have the teller right here, so they'll be coming out onto Sandia.
I know you can't force people to do that, but I'm glad that's an option because, and they do have a decel lane going in there, correct?
Yeah, everything's been finished already. Like on Mall Drive, there is a decel lane here on Sandia.
Is there no acceleration lane coming out of there? It just comes right into the lane of traffic?
Yeah, correct.
Is there a reason Planning Commission didn't look at that? Because you come, I mean, it's a pretty short distance, and people, you know, you turn left. I guess there's just one. Is there one arrow or two there now? Just one left turn arrow or two?
There's two from 3000 over to Mall Drive. There's two.
Because it's just such a short strip right there. I just like if traffic was going and they take up both lanes and there's no acceleration lane. I don't know how that works. But I'm just saying it's kind of blind right there.
I can have Wes speak to you on that one.
Sorry. Excuse me. We usually don't do acceleration lanes, especially when you have an access here and then another one access there, as it causes conflicts as people are trying to get off and people are trying to get on at the same location. And so it just brings you right out into the traffic. This is the full access down here, but that's why we rarely do acceleration lanes, because of that conflict that it creates.
I think they're moving away from acceleration lanes, right?
Yeah.
It used to be a thing, but now it's just not a thing.
Yeah.
They found that they're less effective.
Right.
For me, every lane's an acceleration lane.
Well,
Stoplight configuration right there. There's a number of wrecks right there already.
yeah, and we can look at that and just see the wrecks that have occurred there and why they're occurring, just to kind of follow up and make sure that's the right thing.
Not having a left out will help.
Yeah.
That's where most of our, I think, accidents come, is where somebody's trying to turn left. Almost everywhere, so.
Yep.
Any questions for Carol?
I think it's a high traffic corner. I think a bank is a good use for that corner.
Or a Maverick.
There was actually
Sorry.
There's gas stations that I'm aware of that have looked at that corner, but it is adjacent to a church. So I think it is good for a bank there.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a really beautiful building.
Less traffic with a bank versus a Maverick, right?
Yeah, a little bit less.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mayor, that we approve an ordinance amending the Fields at Mall Drive Planned Development Commercial Zone to allow construction of a 12,500 square foot bank on approximately 1.41 acres located at the northeast corner of Mall Drive. Did I say north? Oh, see, yeah, thank you. Northwest corner of Mall Drive and Sandia Road for a project to be known as Fields Properties State Bank Office with a shared access agreement with lot number 2.
Second.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Natalie. All in favor, starting with Danielle.
Danielle Larkin, aye.
Jimmy Hughes, aye.
Greg MacArthur, aye.
Natalie Larson, aye.
Michelle Tanner, aye.
All right. Excuse me. Item number 8 is to consider approval of an ordinance amending the Desert Color Planned Development Zone for indoor entertainment facility to be known as Rush Fun Center on approximately 5.77 acres, located generally just south of the intersection of I-15 and Southern Parkway. So you can see the property outlined in red there. Property fronts Desert Color Parkway and just north of Black Mountain Drive. About 5.77 acres, as I previously stated. Zoning map designates this as PDC, so it's a commercial designation in the Desert Color development. And general plan designates this as town center area. This is a look at the site plan. Again, this area, it's kind of a darker area, this gray, is the entire site. You can see a pad here that they have kind of set aside as a future, perhaps restaurant or something like that. They have parked it as such, so they're getting the higher parking numbers for that anticipated use. This is the building footprint here. It's just under 50,000 square feet, about 48,000. Total square footage is 77,000. I think that says 73, but it's actually more like 77. That's how they've parked it. The total parking number, they've taken into account the restaurant pad and the fun center, and they have parked it with 336 stalls, which exceeds the required amount in the code. This use is an approved use and in the PDC zone. And this is a look at the building itself. This is proposed to be just under 44 feet in height. It's meeting the setbacks, and we will verify that as we go through the site plan process if this zone change amendment is approved. Again, just other elevation, and then landscape plan. They are planning on using a desert landscaping, low water use, as they have done elsewhere in the development. These are some renderings that were produced. They also produced a flyover. If you're interested in seeing that, I can pull that up as well. But this is just some of those shots from that flyover that they produced for the to show the architecture of the building. With that, the Planning Commission held a public hearing, and they have recommended approval of the application. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those, and the applicant is here as well if you have questions for him.
Questions for Dan?
What kind of fun's going to go on in there?
There are bowling alleys. It's yeah. I think I heard. I don't know if Bob.
So is there like a model somewhere?
I'll let Bob. He'll probably know more than I do.
That's the most important thing.
Appreciate your time this evening. You guys have had a full agenda today, and you guys have done great. So the Rush Fun Center has a bowling alley, has arcade, has laser tag, it has indoor golf cart, electric ones as well. And so inside this building it's basically a 45,000 square foot footprint. Inside there's 2 levels on half of it roughly in the inside. And then inside it's basically just a big fun center, just a place where you can take your kids and go play, or myself I'd like to go to. It sounds like fun. And obviously coupled in the entertainment area for Desert Color right next to Big Shots as well. And then we'll be surrounding this with restaurants all the way through here as quickly as we can as well.
So is it like night sky friendly as far as lighting goes?
Yeah, so same desert color guidelines across the board. Everything is downward firing, and it will go through the same process. Yep. Everything is night sky friendly. Should be super fun. We're super excited, obviously, to get more commercial kicked off. We do have a couple more buildings coming in the near future that will have 4 or 5 restaurants coming in within 2 buildings in the very near future. Hopefully within the next 45 days, I'll be submitting those and bringing those in as well. And then we'll just start kind of coming through as quickly as we can. So super excited about it.
Any other questions for Bob?
Just a comment, I think it's a great addition to the master plan down there at Desert Color. So I think it's great.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm super excited for you guys to be getting some restaurants down there.
Yeah, we are too. There's so many people working and now living down there, and you guys have all seen it. And yeah, we're literally going as quickly as we can now to get them in here so that we can start building those guys. Yep.
That's great.
Council, I'm ready for motion.
So Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve an ordinance amending the Desert Color Planned Development Zone for an indoor entertainment facility to be known as Rush Fun Center, approximately 5.77 acres located generally just south of the intersection of the I-15 freeway and the Southern Parkway.
Second. Motion by Greg, seconded by Michelle. All in favor, starting with Michelle.
Michelle Tanner, aye.
Natalie Larson, aye.
Greg MacArthur, aye.
Jimmy Hughes, aye.
Danielle Larkin, aye.
Good evening. Are you guys ready? Okay. Item number 9, consider approval of an ordinance changing the general plan from low-density residential to open space, medium-density residential, and high-density residential on approximately 14.44 acres located at 1295 North Bluff Street, known as Dodge Springs. Here you can see the location of the property. You have Bluff right here, 1250 North runs along here. So the current zoning on it is residential estates, minimum 20 acres. And then the general plan, as was mentioned, is low-density residential. So here's a concept plan that we've been working with the applicant on. Typically with a general plan amendment, we don't require any type of exhibit or concept plan or anything, but due to the nature of the property and the different difficulties involved with it, they were willing to come up with a plan. And then there was a lot of discussion at Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission recommended the following for it. I should note that the original application was for high-density residential over the entire property. Staff had some concerns with that, and Planning Commission addressed that. So they ended up with essentially 5 acres of open space along the hillside of the property would be one bubble. Medium density residential on the south end along all fronts of 1250 North would be another, and then the remaining property as high density residential. With that, I can answer any questions, and I do believe the applicant has a representative here.
Questions for Dan or the applicant?
So help me understand the acreages there. Sorry, back on that other one. So 5 acres of open space?
So I believe on here what they have is 4 acres. This is their most recent submittal. So they have 4 acres of open space, 9 acres of high density, and 0.95 acres of
High
medium.
density meaning how many units per acre?
Up to 22, I believe.
Where's
but
the
basically, so based on this property though, so really the buildable area of it would be up here along Bluff Street, right up in here on the east side of the property.
So I know it's not conceptual, but I guess my biggest concern is putting high density. If they were to have to shove it all in a tighter area right out on Bluff Street, is there only access going to be Bluff Street?
No, they'll also have access over here along 1250 North. My thought would be that if it does go on to Bluff, that it would probably just be like a right in, right out. And the main access would have to come somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Because it's a really
left-
busy, that's a really
A left
dangerous
out.
area, yeah.
So that's, yeah, it's a really high speed area coming down off that hill, and then you have cars merging in, and you have the trail right there. It's kind of, a perfect storm as far as having cross access right there. Would there be any way for all of the traffic to go in from the south?
Well, we would have to have,
Okay.
have secondary access.
so it would have to be on to Bluff Street.
Yeah, and I believe the property owners, when they sold property, when UDOT came in to expand the area, I believe they have an agreement with them that they do have an access. And I don't know if it specifies what type, but they do have access.
This is a super challenging piece of property to work with, so I know the owners are trying to figure out how to work with it. With that hillside still in the buildable area, is it actually buildable, or is, like Councilman Hughes says, is the density going to be transferred?
Well, so this hillside area is not in the hillside overlay, so
Oh,
they
it's
could.
not.
But it's really steep. I mean, building on it, you'd have to either dig it out or.
And that was staff's concern, is we really wanted them to dedicate the whole hillside so we didn't have to, and just make it open space so they couldn't build there.
So what's the total number of units that could be there based on this proposal?
The applicant, I believe, has mentioned, based on this, about 220 units.
And that's John Willis, that's subtracting the open space. And so the open space doesn't have any unit count. Only the residential general plan has a residential unit count on it. And so talk about the access, and Mike had mentioned it, they did have an agreement with UDOT to allow for a right-in, right-out. At this location, they worked with UDOT when they dedicated a portion to the expansion of Bluff Street.
John, would it be straight across from that other road?
Yeah, I believe it's this access right here. There's this median that's right here, and so I believe it's right at this location. And then they'd have that secondary access to 1250. Based on the fire code, anything above 50 units would require secondary access.
Mm-hmm.
And so that number of units would require both of those.
Is this a spot where we could do a traffic study, at least on speeds? Just because my concern is doing anything across there. I think they should be able to do it. I just am wondering if we need to work with UDOT, if that's going to be there, to maybe do something like that speed sign that we have up on Red Hills Parkway that like flashes the speed, because people are coming off that hill. They're not going they're going so fast, like way over the speed limit. So it just concerns me. And it is a weird spot where people are merging together. It already feels kind of dangerous. So I don't know if we could work with UDOT to get them to, get people to slow way down before they come up over that hill.
Yeah, we can. And that is a struggle because you're going from 55 miles an hour and you're also coming down a hill,
And you're merging.
down into Bluff Street, and you're merging.
You don't
There's a
realize
lot
you're
of stuff
going how
on.
fast you're going.
You don't.
You really don't. And so 1250 north, even if we right in, right out, so if you're going north and you're trying to enter that piece of property, you're going to come on 1250 north, which is going to force a left-hand turn into oncoming traffic. Speaking from experience from my day job, I've been involved in some of those accidents, which means they didn't turn out well, coming down that road. So this is of utmost importance that we figure out. I don't know if with UDOT, if there's no light at 1250 north, and I don't know that they can put one in there because coming off that hill.
Talking with Cameron, I know they had looked at doing a possible signal there at one point when they were doing the overpass, but everybody backed off, and that didn't go any further than that. But it's something we can get with UDOT and look at ways to be able to reduce that. Kind of sit like you indicated, maybe ways to sign that so people are aware that they're coming into an access.
Something like over by the DMV.
Yeah.
So
where you got flashing lights saying, hey, you're going to have to stop.
Right.
And you're coming down a hill.
So there,
Go ahead.
oh, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, that's good.
So we're talking about traffic here. I think there's a little bit of a bigger conversation that I want to bring up, just to bring up for topic of conversation, and that is there's no places that are easy in St. George anymore. All the easy stuff's done. So now we're to the hard places. I know we have the family here. I know the family's been trying to sell this land for quite a while now. I know the general plan currently is commercial, and it's a tough commercial spot, and that's why it hasn't sold yet. So as we look at commercial, why is it tough for commercial? Well, access is really tough there. Visibility is down off the road a little bit, has a hill on it. So it's not really super great commercial. I think for the same reasons that it's not great for commercial, is it's not great for high density residential, due to the access primarily. I'll mention it. My girlfriend in high school died right there because of left-hand accesses onto this area coming into town. I think the densities are too high for it. Again, there's places that we have high density, and we're going for those. I mean, look at Tech Ridge. We put the high density. We have Desert Color that's going to have massive high density. There's a lot of places that have the high density coming in, and we're allowing it. This piece, in my opinion, is what we're asking here, what the applicant is asking for, is we're going to leave the hillside there so we can group it all up, and we'll get it right there, and we'll get a lot of, I think that's too many units for this particular piece. So instead of, in my opinion, looking at all the ways that we can maybe make this work, I think that the densities are too high. Maybe we could look at medium density residential. Maybe we'd make the open space bigger, and so there's because we know you can only build right there by the road, but I think the densities are too high in my opinion.
Comments?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Does the applicant want to share their perspective on the densities?
My name is Brad Brown with Stewart Land Company, and I appreciate all your time tonight. And I do want to say it's I can tell St. George is a special place. I mean, passionate people we've seen for the past few hours, and you guys are doing a good job. So we're excited to be part of this. And you know, Greg, like you mentioned, it's a unique property, and some of the characteristics make it tough to find the best land use, and I think we have to get that right. And I think, like you said, the commercial, when the overpass went in there, you know, it's tucked in there, and no anchors, no co-tenants next to a church, and it's just not feasible.
Can you speak into the mic a little bit?
Sorry, not feasible. Yeah. And I think that, you know, we did talk with staff about a few other commercial uses. Storage units would work there, light industrial, maybe an RV park, but staff, you know, said that that's not what should fit there, and we agree. But really what's left, you know, and I don't think single-family homes. Medium density is tough with all the challenges and infrastructure on that. You know, I really think high density is an appropriate use there. The visibility is good. I do think that the traffic issues, safety concerns, are of utmost importance. But those same concerns will be there. I mean, if we need to solve it, we need to solve it for medium density, or we need to solve it for high density. You know, our medium density users would have to have the same safety precautions or whatever we do to make that so we don't have a tragedy. You know, and I think also when the overpass was put in, I'm sure that it was very highly scrutinized. Traffic impact studies done by UDOT. They don't do anything fast or without a lot of hands in it and a lot of eyes on it. And you know, we obviously would work with your engineers, with our engineers, do a traffic impact study, study those site triangles, those speeds, what, you know, and do what the engineers, what UDOT requires of us. But the access is an issue, and I think that you know, a lot of that was created when that overpass came in. You know, that was created by the city and UDOT, and you know, that had a huge effect on the family and the Phillips. You know, they were good partners. They came to the table and, you know, cooperated in land and losing that access, you know, but I'm sure they did that knowing that, you know, with that agreement, they'd be able to, it wouldn't stop them from, you know, they took a big hit on the value of their land, just not being able to do commercial, and, you know, but I think it would also be another big hit if, you know, if they can't do this. But we, you know, I don't know if you have any other questions, or, you know, we're excited about this project. We want to make a special project that, you know, fits in this, provides some variety of housing. But really, you know, I don't know what else we could do with this land. And we've looked hard. Our team has looked hard, and we've worked with staff a lot. But do you have any questions?
Can you help us understand? You said the infrastructure would be challenging with medium density. Can you help us understand that?
Yeah. So there's, I mean, a lot of things that would go into developing that property. Obviously, the elevation. You know, we have to deal with elevation. A lot of grading. There's the Dodge Springs. That's going to have to be mitigated, and you know, storm sewer and everything. You know, talking with Cade, sewer is going to be a big issue to get it to that site, to service that site. You know, a lot of those kind of convergence of a lot of factors, you know, just make smaller scale development a lot harder to justify.
More questions for the applicant?
I guess I go back to the traffic concern. I live on 3000 East, and where I live, I have to go down to the light to get on, and right now, and I don't feel like I'm battling 4 lanes. I'm just battling 2 today, but it's going to come to 4, and it's just a small neighborhood. So I genuinely think we have to look at the welfare and safety of the community, and it is a tough piece of property. I wish there was something commercial that would come along that would benefit the family and make that work, but I just can't see that high density at between 4 and 7 o'clock at night, turning left, coming down that road. It's just a lot of traffic right there. And, you know, it may filter in and out, but it's just like that comment I made about the State Bank. I see how many wrecks there are right there on a barely 2-lane road, and there's a signal right there. And I don't think it's a daily, but it's a weekly occurrence that happens right there. If somebody rear ends somebody's, and that these are people following traffic signals, not crossing lefts and rights. So that's my concern, is the safety of the community.
So if on Bluff, though, it's a right in, right out, and then the main entrance is on, I can't see the name of that other street, but then would that lead to a stoplight?
Stoplight
or they would
controlled
still be
by-
having to turn?
By UDOT, that would be, you know, and a lot of that goes into when the engineers and UDOT engineers, if it justifies a light, you know, we can't
Right.
just do that. And a lot of these issues, you know, this is just, you know, the general plan adjustment. We still have to get a rezone and get site plans approved. You know, and during that process, this will be studied in depth. And, you know, really 100 units versus 200 units on a traffic impact on a street like Bluff is relatively, you know, it's not a huge difference between the two. I think the issue is solving the safety concerns, you know, and maybe we press forward with this and it comes to, you know, a crash gate for fire onto Bluff, a light on 1250. You know, that's not something we can.
I know on Crimson Ridge Drive and 3000 East, I've been asking for that for a year now. You know what I mean? They just don't hand out stoplights unless the traffic study justifies it. And I don't know how coming off that roadway down 18, I don't know how they can put a signal there so close, and then we have that next signal right there. You mean like to get onto Bluff Street, the traffic pattern there, and then for some reason I thought they were going to rework that intersection in years to come
thought they were
on Bluff
too.
Street to Sunset.
I think that is in their long-term plan.
And
So
I-
what, sorry,
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was good, and I don't know all those answers to those. That those are very specific traffic engineer questions, but I do know that we'll have to get those answered and satisfied, and because we don't want to make an unsafe project. But I can't tell you right now what those solutions will be. But I know we'll do them. I have a lot of trust in your engineers and my engineers, and yeah, UDOT doesn't let things slide, so.
I just think from a general plan perspective, so wearing the city council hat, planning the general plan of where things should be in the community, taking note that the easy pieces, they're not there. So now we're onto the hard pieces, and now we have to make the hard decisions. And when we look at this piece with the access, when we talk about high density, I don't feel comfortable rezoning or general planning for the community as this is a high density place. It's just a really hard one, a hard decision, but I don't think it fits.
Wes, is there any plan here that can answer the traffic mitigation concerns?
That's what I was going to say is I don't know what the applicant feels, but what if we tabled this and had a meeting with traffic engineers so we could have a better idea of could we control this and could we make it a safe intersection, and what does that look like so that this conversation is more productive for the applicant?
I can tell you what my engineer texted me as I was sitting here asking him these same questions. He said, yes, we're planning on doing a TIS, a traffic impact study. The city already stated that would be required. With the alignment of the existing access across Bluff, this will significantly help to reduce the confusion and accidents. This will be shown on the TIS. Concerns on Bluff are roadway speeds and sight triangles. This will also be addressed in the TIS. So I think, you're talking to him, he wouldn't be able to say, here's an answer that it's solved, but that we would have to solve it. So
I just know that when when we looked at this project a while back, Cameron and I, he indicated that UDOT, there was some request to have a traffic signal there when they were building the overpass, but UDOT did not support that at the time, and so it didn't go any further than that. They just ended it right there because UDOT didn't support putting that signal so close to that interchange. So can it be brought up again? I don't know. It's a question we'd have to discuss with UDOT, but yeah, that's where it went originally.
Okay, council, it comes back to you for the hard decisions.
Well, I was just going to ask the applicant, is there, obviously, Councilman MacArthur is really worried about this density in this space, but I also understand that, this is a really hard piece of land to work with. Is there a lower amount of density that you guys would feel comfortable with us looking at that would pencil for you? I mean, I understand you were put in a position where you had infrastructure come in and make your land, change the value of your land. That's really challenging. But, is there a lower density that would be comfortable for everybody here?
I think that we originally, as he mentioned, we came with a different plan with, that was utilizing more space. We had more units. So we've shrunk it down based on land costs and infrastructure costs.
Okay.
And I guess my question would be, to what end? I mean, are we just more comfortable with 100 units versus 200 units, or 150 units versus 200 units? Because I think if the same issues are going to arise for 150 units or 100 units that will arise with 200, but we will be...
Only double.
What?
Only double.
Well,
I understand what you're saying, but they'll be double the amount of traffic if you go from 100 to 200. I mean, I'm not discounting what you're saying, but that's I think the concern here is that, we're really going to be encouraging a whole bunch of people to take 1250 north. Because how many of them are going to be coming from the south to do a right turn in?
And I don't know when the last time
Or
is
coming
you
from
guys
the
have been
north,
on
coming south.
1250 North, but that road is a mess.
Right, and so the only people that are going to use 1250 north right now is I'm just counting them here on the map, maybe 32 homes that might say that's easier than going up 1100 west. And we're talking about 4 or 5 times that many residents, units per se. That many, 4 or 5 times that many cars that would be potentially encouraged to go on 1250 north. So and that's all it is. Look, I think all of us are trying to figure out a way to say yes to this, but we're trying to say, we got to be responsible as well. I personally like what's there already. I like to see the horses out in there and all that, but I also understand they have a piece of property they want to make use of. But that being said, too, I have some property that I would love to be commercial, but I haven't been able to convince anybody that that's going to be great in a residential neighborhood. So it's just like Councilman MacArthur's saying, this is a difficult piece. So then where do we draw the line that difficult means just anything goes so that it makes a profit, which I'm all for that, and that it turns into an issue that we're now trying to make fit if we don't know the answer. And the answer is probably a light at 1250. I mean, if we just be honest, but we can't say that UDOT's going to do that or require that or even approve that.
And sometimes there's an option I've seen where we split a cost or they allow us to put in a light. I'm not promising that. Don't quote me on that.
Those are expensive. Yeah.
Those are expensive, which again leads to if we cut down the unit count, that option is definitely out the window. Our hands are tied, bare minimum.
So would you be amicable to us tabling it so we can have a conversation with UDOT and our traffic engineers and really look at could this piece of property work for the density that you're asking for?
I guess I prefer that to a denial, but I think.
That's why I'm trying to offer that to you, because I don't know. Maybe I'm reading my counsel wrong, but I'm worried that you're going to have a denial, so I'd like to give you an opportunity to let's have a conversation about it.
But you do have another bite at the apple, I guess, because we will have to come back for a rezone, and if there's issues in there, tabling it and waiting another month. We have certain contract deadlines with the family, and trying to get things moving. When I think we could address that at the rezone site plan stage as well. So
I think we should address the densities now. That's what you do with the general plan. Once it's entitled, then it's like, well, I'm entitled to that, and we need to make it work. So that's why we have to address it now. It's the hard conversation now.
So does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mayor, but I can't read it without my glasses. I'll make a motion that we table the ordinance changing the general plan from low-density residential to open space, medium-density residential, and high-density residential on approximately 14.44 acres located at 1295 North Bluff Street, known as Dodge Springs, to have a conversation about traffic capabilities on that property. And I don't know, do you want me to table it to a date specific? Yeah. Just table it. Okay.
Motion by Danielle. Do I have a second?
I'll second to table. Yeah. Look at traffic.
Seconded by Michelle. All in favor of tabling this, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
So, Natalie, you're an aye. So motion carries 4-1 with Councilman MacArthur not abstaining, voting no.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, item number 10 is to consider approval of a conditional use permit for a cell tower to be known as Atlas Cell Tower.
Wait,
on a-
is it going to look like that?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take it.
Anyway, it'll be on .03 acres located at 1842 West Sunset Boulevard. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? Yeah. So here's the proposed location. You can see here, oh, where's my mouse? So we have Dixie Downs Drive. Here we have the Jimmy John's Maverick. The current zoning is C3, which allows 4 cell towers with a max height of 50 feet. That's why we're here tonight, is because the applicant's requesting 80 feet, which would require a conditional use permit. And then the general plan has it as commercial. So again, here's just a better site plan of the site. You have Jimmy John's, you have the Dollar, and then you have the Pop Drinks. And so it'll be located just behind that Pop Drinks area. So it's off Dixie Downs Drive. Here's Sunset Boulevard. You have the Maverick on the corner, and then Jimmy John's.
I got it.
Just another picture of the site plan there. And as I mentioned, they are asking for an 80-foot high tower. At the Planning Commission, they reviewed and recommended approval of the proposed 80-foot cell tower in the proposed location, and then with the condition that they work with the staff to kind of camouflage it, because there was a discussion there that, well, the applicant talked to the Planning Commission and mentioned that they have paint that they can put in that kind of helps it blend in with the background. Red stone.
It says camouflage. They're going to paint it green and tan, and yeah.
Well, I told Councilman MacArthur, I think I'm the only person who actually thinks those, when they put trees on them, that they're kind of cute. Everybody else hates them, but I don't know why I like them.
You are the only person that likes it.
I know. I've never heard anybody else tell me they like them.
I saw one in Vegas that actually looked more
They're
like
kinda-
a pine tree
yeah.
than I'd ever seen before, but that's the first one ever.
But
'cause
they
most
look
of
weird
them
here
are
because we
ugly.
don't have any pine trees.
That's true.
They put the tree stuff on. You know what it is.
Oh, totally.
And so
It's just
it
kind of
doesn't-
artistic, right? I don't know.
But I could answer any questions for you.
Any questions?
What does staff think about 80-foot height?
So, 80 feet high, there was a discussion with the Planning Commission. One of the points that was brought up with the tower that's 80 feet high, they can have up to 4 different cell companies on that tower, as opposed to them coming in and getting individual towers for each different company.
Was this part of a public hearing?
No.
No? I just know we had a lot when there's a cell tower over in Panorama, and we lowered it because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you get the same thing on a 60? I think that's what the conversation was at the time, was it you could do the same thing on a 60, it's just they like to get a 80 if you can. Is that the truth? Do you know that, or?
I'm not sure.
The thing is, they get more people to buy onto that one tower. That was the discussion at Planning Commission, is that you can stack, 4 or 5 different companies on one tower versus, what I mean? It just layers it so they get more access for more companies to sell their space.
But here's my question to what Natalie's saying. As I understand it, it doesn't mean that they have to, because they're buying the space, right? It's almost like my company owns this space and your company can come in and put your towers on mine, but then we also have, then other companies still just come in and ask for more towers. And they don't have to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not like
yeah.
we're saying we only have a certain number of cell tower locations around the city and you have to make one of them work.
Right.
Right? They can
Right.
still, we could make it 80 feet so they can fit 4 on it. And then if the other companies are like, I'm not buying from them, I'll just come in and apply for my own tower, then, and I actually don't care about the 80 feet. I think it's fine because it's back in. So, I mean, I'm not arguing that because I'm arguing against this. I'm just saying that that's, as I understand it, if we're saying let them have 80 feet so that 4 can go on, They
I guess I
can,
would-
but it doesn't mean they will.
I guess I wondered if there was a neighborhood discussion, anybody got any letters on it? If, like, the neighborhood doesn't care, I don't care. I just know in other cell tower areas, it's been a big deal, and so I just want to be sensitive to the community that's around it and the businesses around it. So if there's any negative feedback, I didn't personally get a letter, I just want to be clear with that.
Yeah, I
So-
agree.
So I will say, I did have a phone conversation with a gentleman that owned one of the townhomes just to the north, and he had a little concern with it being placed there.
Would he rather, so it's going to be placed there, right, no matter what?
Yeah, it's permitted.
So I guess in my mind, if I owned a townhome there, I would almost rather have it be higher than lower, because the lower they are, they're so wide. Does that make sense? They're almost more like obtrusive to your view.
So they can have up to 4 on that one property, did you say that? 4?
That's what the applicant discussed at Planning Commission, yeah. They said they
But
could.
have 4 separate cell towers.
Oh, that was the discussion, yeah. So having the 80-foot tower, they could just put the 4 companies on one tower as opposed to having them on 4 separate towers.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be able to put 4 separate towers exactly in this
Okay,
location.
then that makes better sense.
Yeah.
We got John out of
John, do you have something you want to add there? I want to hear what John has to say.
stretch his legs.
There's no limitation on the number of towers. It's not, it's just based on height. And so the height is 50 feet, but we don't have a limit on the many of towers per property. Just a limit on the height,
They could come back and put 3 more towers there.
technically. I mean, there's no limitation on the number of towers, just the height. Limitation of the 50 feet, anything above that is a conditional use permit.
Any other questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the 80-foot tall unmanned telecommunication facility at 1842 West Sunset Boulevard with the Planning Commission's recommendation that it be camouflaged.
I'll second that.
They do a great job.
Second.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Natalie.
Oh, you already seconded it? I was asleep. I'm still stuck on the
All in
phone, so-
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I don't have any appointments. Any reports from any of your board meetings that you've attended? Michelle? Stop yawning. You're going to start a whole... Natalie?
We had a Sugarloaf meeting today, and it went well, and I'm so excited about that project, and I think the community is going to love it, and Steve Snow and Lyman Hafen are doing a very good job at accurately depicting Dixie and telling that story very well. Could not have got 2 better gentlemen to do that.
I'll add to that, Natalie. So the path that we want to put around the Dixie Rock, or the Sugar Loaf, we will be getting the approvals for that. The discussion topic will be happening in July for the Habitat Conservation Committee. So it's, the approvals won't come, but we'll be moving forward and having it presented. Maybe it'll be approved. It might take a little longer, but that's the next step on that one.
Jimmy?
Nothing.
Danielle?
I think, is anybody coming to the recycle facility tomorrow?
No.
Just me? All right. I'll
Have
let you guys
fun.
know. I'll take a video for you. Going to the
Okay.
recycling facility tomorrow. It's a little stinky, but it's nothing compared to the dump. Or the wastewater facility. Yeah.
Especially in June.
It's a little warm in there is what I remember from last time. It's a little sweaty.
Yeah, report back on that.
All right.
No need for a closed session, right? So, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Greg, seconded by Jimmy. All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you.